And welcome back to another special edition of the Michael Decon program. First time listeners out there, thanks for finding this. It's a pleasure to meet you. This is a very different kind of show, a place where you don't feel so alone. Joining us tonight is Mr. John Michael Greer. He is an American author and druid who writes on ecology, politics, appropriate technology, and oil depletion, and of course the occult. He has joined us this evening to talk about his new book, The King in Orange, The Magical and Occult Roots of Political Power. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again, on a night like this. I almost burped. Good Lord, I should have not started drinking so early, boys and girls, but hey, you know how it goes, and I believe Mike is currently waiting patiently. Mike, are you alive and well? Or are you not alive? Oh, yes, go ahead, Mike.
Hello?
There you are. Mike, I was burping.
I know. That's why I'm cracking up.
I was burping, Mike. What happened there?
I don't know. What happened, bro?
I guess I drank too much. Mike, and that happens every now and then, you know.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's one of those nights. I'm fired up already. And of course, we are joined with a very respectable guest tonight, Mr. John Michael Greer. He is patiently waiting on the line as well, Mike. I think we should let him in.
Let him in.
Yeah, let him in already. John, are you out there with us tonight?
I certainly am. Thank you very much for having me on.
I apologize. I was burping earlier.
These things do happen occasionally, you know. Trust me, you're not going to get a druid upset by talking about, like, natural phenomena.
That's what it was. I mean, I was drinking. Yeah, I started drinking a little early tonight, and all of a sudden, I just had a burp all of a sudden right there. I don't know what happened. Well, regardless, I'm glad you are here, and my goodness, there's so much to talk about with you here, my friend.
Well, I'm good with that.
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm here for.
Right. So once again, thank you kindly for joining us this evening. And I've been meaning to talk to you for quite some time now. So I was quite thrilled when I saw your name. When the publishing company reached out to me, I was like, wow, There he is, finally.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. I was quite excited.
I'm glad to hear it.
Oh, yes. And of course, we are joined here with my co-host, Mike Hideous. Mike, go ahead and say hello.
Hello, Michael and Michael. I'm Mike.
So many Michaels, yes.
Yes, 3 mics on the mic.
Nice to be part of the show.
There we go. I'm delighted to be here, as I said.
Oh, yes. And what I like about you, John, is that you don't really hold back at all. You don't really care about any criticism that comes your way.
Yeah.
And you're also interested in a long range of topics, and you're well suited for the show.
Thank you. Life is too short to worry about what people think of you.
I agree. It's way too damn short to care.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless, people are going to dislike you anyways.
Of course.
So, you know, can't really win, right, Mike?
Well, it just adds to the entertainment value. This book, admittedly, is likely to get more meltdowns, more screaming tirades, more, you know, of the other colorful activities than most of my books do. But hey, I'm good with that.
Oh, yes. And it is a very good book, by the way. I love the cover. As all of your books are well done, the cover work is fantastic. The cover art, rather. And the same with your other book, the conspiracy book.
Oh, you liked that? Yes. That was a fun project. We have to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
But yeah, the King in Orange is my first book with Inner Traditions, and it's certainly not going to be my last. They did a really nice job, both with the design, the layout, the editing, all this kind of stuff. I was very pleased.
It was really good. But before we talk about your book, I thought we could sort of talk about your background for a few minutes here and let the listeners know a little bit about you.
Okay, the very short form is that I grew up in American suburbia in the 1960s and 1970s. If any of our listeners who know that environment know that it was incredibly boring, especially if you were a child, especially if you were kind of a bookish intellectual child and were told that, hey, here's the world, one-dimensional plastic from end to end. I went on basically a desperate quest to find some reason to believe the world was more interesting than what was, on the television and presented by my teachers and parents and so on. And that took me into many strange fields. Occultism was one of them. I was an expert on werewolf trivia by the age of 10. I got into all kinds of strange things. And to some extent, that habit stuck. And so after I set my goal on becoming a published writer, the first thing that I focused on was, I tried getting some fantasy novels published. They were really pretty bad. And then, so I went to work in nonfiction and have written a lot of books in a lot of fields of nonfiction. Finally got my fiction up to stuff. I spent 12 years as the head of a druid order. That was not my idea, but just one of those things that happened. I have been initiated into a range of strange traditions and so on. I have a large collection of funny hats. I'm quite serious. Some of them are quite remarkable.
Me too.
And so that's kind of where my trajectory through life. I currently live in East Providence, Rhode Island, the exciting metropolis of
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
It's a pleasant place. It's
right.
A pleasant place.
No doubt. And what about your upbringing, though? What about your parents? What was that like for you growing up? Were they heavily religious?
They had a hard time with me.
I thought so.
My dad is a very nice person. My dad has pretty much the kind of attitude and outlook you'd expect for a school teacher, which he was. He's now retired, of course. And a great guy, reads Playboys, plays basketball, this kind of stuff. About my biological mother, the less said, the better. My stepmother, who's Japanese American, is far and away the nicest person in my family, and she gave me a lot of exposure to, obviously Japanese culture. She was born in Tokyo, and so that helped. That helped a great deal. But generally speaking, my family has always just kind of scratched their heads and gone, "What is John up to now?"
What happened to John? I'm sure they've said that.
John? Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, it mellowed out as soon as I started publishing books, because my dad could look at that and say, okay, he is actually going to amount to something. And as I now have more than 70 books in print, I think I've definitely made some progress there.
Oh yeah. Has he read any of your work, by the way?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
He is not a great fan of my occult writings, understandably. Not his thing. He likes my novels, which is kind of nice.
Very nice. Very nice. And he's still alive with us today, correct?
Oh yeah. He and my stepmother live in a retirement home in Tacoma, Washington. Another glorious metropolis, or something like that.
Interesting. And did you give them a copy of your new book?
Oh yeah. He'll
okay.
be he doesn't have The King in Orange yet, because I don't have my author's copies of that yet.
Are you saying
it's actually not going to hit the bookshelves for another month, I think.
Are you saying I have the book and you don't?
You're right. I have the manuscript, and I have a PDF of the PDF that I used to make the index. But if you have a physical copy,
I got the physical book
in your hands.
Wow.
Ooh, you are a step ahead of me. It's fine.
Holy hell.
Hey, publishers do this all the time. I mean, come on. Publicity counts. The author can wait.
That's true. Well, to be honest with you, I would like to send this book to you to get an autograph, to be honest.
Oh, we can do that, yeah.
I think that highly of you. I will put you over here, to be honest. Not going to lie. Lots of great work. This guy is insanely intelligent, by the way, and your new book, it's great work, and lots of words that I didn't even know existed. So I had to look up a lot of words, to be honest. I'm not going to lie.
That's a bad habit of mine. The thing is, my books look really, really intelligent. I'm not actually. What it is that there's so little of an overlap between the stuff I study and the stuff most people study. I mean, there's lots of things that you know, I'm sure, that I have never heard of before. But I spend my time studying obscure, strange tomes, and all, you know, the kind of things you would expect in an H.P. Lovecraft story. I'm there, and so I, you know, saying, well, what about this strange stuff? Just remember, I have no idea how football works.
Me neither.
Yeah, well, Mike can join you on that.
There we go.
Yes, he doesn't know the rules. He doesn't even know what he's watching. He thinks he's watching hockey.
It looks to me as though it's a headbutting game.
It is.
You know, these guys run at each other and ram headfirst into each other and going, oh,
somebody makes
how
a
much
home
break
run.
damage was it? Yeah, you know, maybe that's what's going on. I don't know.
By the way, when I was reading your book, I couldn't help but think of Simon the Magician.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why. And I'm sure you're quite familiar with Simon.
You're thinking Simon Magus, the figure in
right.
Yeah, who was active about the same time as the Apostle Paul. Oh yeah, that's a field that I will be researching someday. I haven't really gotten much past some basic sources, but the whole tangle of things around that is fascinating.
Really fascinating. And, you know, he made everyone think he was God.
Yeah, the way you have the Gnostics and a whole range of other mystics and people practicing magic and so on, all in this bubbling cauldron of ideas out of which we get the Christian religion.
Right.
It's
very, very strange stuff. And of course, that influenced early Christianity through the 14th, 15th century and forward. Lots of strange stuff with that guy there. Lots to uncover, lots to discover and rediscover. Apparently, the man could levitate.
Simon Magus. If he had been more orthodox, he would probably be the patron saint of aircraft or
wait, who are we talking about?
On. Simon Magus.
Simon Magus, correct.
Oh, Simon.
Yeah,
oh, okay. I thought we skipped off on
there was a Christian. I forget which Christian saint it was that had the habit of levitating. He's become the patron saint of pilots and balloon aviators and so on.
Interesting.
Right. And for some odd reason, that name kept popping up in my mind when I was reading your book. I don't know why.
That's strange because the one of the writing projects I'm working on now, actually, I'm having to do a lot of research into the old Gnostics, more their later antiquity and into the Middle Ages, the Cathars and so on. But
maybe that was maybe that was some sort of synchronicity.
I don't know.
The universe.
Mm-hmm. The universe is a weird place.
I agree.
It's one of the good things about it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And, of course, let's talk a little bit about your book here, The King in Orange. How long did it take you to write this book? And, of course, I kind of felt it was coming out because, you know, I've been reading your blog for quite some time now. And, again,
there you go.
You're an excellent writer. I'm not,
Thank you.
Being honest.
Thank you. Well, what happened with the book, I mean, a lot of where the book started was with a series of blog posts that began in January of 2016, when I looked at the situation shaping up into the then presidential election and said, it looks as though Donald Trump is going to win. And so I wrote a blog post on that, and I kept on writing on the subject. Those posts, many of them, became raw material that I ended up turning into the book. It probably took about a year, but it wasn't. I was doing other things in the meantime, so it was a matter of work a bunch on this, then do something else, and so on. But it draws on ideas that I've been wrestling with in one way or another for about the last 20 years.
Oh, yes. I wish I had a copy to give to Mike Hideous here. He would like this book plenty, I'm sure.
It will be available shortly.
That's true. It will be available very, very soon. And just last night, I read a description of your book, Magic and Politics. Seem like unlikely bedfellows. But in the King in Orange author, John Michael Greer, that is you, I suppose. I think that's you.
Mm-hmm. Last I checked.
It could be someone else. Who knows? It's probably a clone.
No, it's I am my own evil twin. So it's me.
Okay. Confirmed. It's really him, folks.
Okay, I've got a couple aliases myself.
Right. So you, yes.
Well, I have lots of aliases, but they all have the same name I do.
Oh, okay. Mine have all different kinds of names. I used to be my own manager. I used to be my own publicity agent. Yeah, I've got all kinds of names.
One of my teachers in occultism used to do that. He had this whole series of identities that he would use for various purposes.
Yeah.
I never got into that.
Right. And in the description, you said you go beyond superficial memes and extreme partisanship to reveal unmentionable realities that spawned the unexpected presidential victory of an elderly real estate mogul turned reality TV star. And that's, pretty much my perception of Donald Trump going back to about 2005, 2006. I always said he was sort of like the godfather of reality TV, sort of laid down the blueprint, pretty much like he laid down the blueprint to sort of defeat the Democratic Party in a way, to sort of rally the Republicans and he laid down that blueprint, in other words, to defeat them. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's just it. People underestimate Trump, and I think one of the reasons that he succeeds as widely as he does is that he goes out of his way to get people to underestimate him. I mean, look at his hairdo. You remember the way he wore his hair consistently during the campaign. He always had this silly little red hat on. That was deliberate. It was there to make people go, "Oh, he's just a bumpkin." And then, he'd been doing that through his real estate career. He'd been doing that as a reality TV star. He'd been doing that in his wrestling promoter phase. And then of course, once he became president, he would just toss out these bizarre things to get everyone yammering over on subject A, and then do something on subject B while they were distracted. It was entertaining to watch.
Very entertaining,
to say the very least.
Yeah, most people now are like so bored with Joe Biden. They want President Trump back in there.
So true.
Well, I mean, everyone's so bored. The media's bored with Joe Biden. They want chaos.
He's a puppet on a stick.
We love chaos here, by the way. Yeah, a puppet on a stick. That's a great description there.
I like to refer to it as a puppet with a stick up his ass.
Well, you can go there too. Whatever floats your boat.
I figure I was going to keep it clean for.
Oh, you don't have to be clean on this show.
Yeah, I mean, I just
with Michael and I.
That's very true.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, there's the running joke that if you get back behind the podium, you'll have to see which Democratic Party staffer has his hand up, doing the sock puppet routine. But no, the thing is, Biden is a third-rate political hack. He basically he's one of the class of professional politicians who gets wedged in place. He's done practically nothing through his career. And he was what the Democratic Party could find to sort of fill the gap once they discovered that most Americans were not willing to put up with the antics of their extreme left wing. So we have Joe Biden as long as he lasts.
I wonder how long he will last. Most people were saying, he's going to drop dead. I'm not quite sure it's going to be that easy.
I have no idea. I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. So far he seems to be, to be sort of lurching along.
He seems fine to me.
In his usual bumbling fashion, he can make it for his entire term.
Yeah, I mean, he did trip a few times, but that's okay. That's normal. People fall all the time. Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Greer, I gotta tell you, I'm so happy to hear you say what you're saying. I really am. I didn't know what angle you were going with tonight, but it's interesting to hear what you're saying about Biden, I have to say.
It's I have no animosity toward the man.
No. I get it. You're totally cool. I respect that.
Yeah.
But I didn't, not knowing, not having spoken to you. Michael knows, you are more than I do. But I really didn't know which angle you're gonna take, and I would be fine either way. I'm cool with it either way. It's your choice. I respect that. It's just that you threw me for a loop.
I do that to people.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Oh yes, and I hear the birds very happy in the background.
Oh, the birds are happy. Yes, they're happy tonight.
Very good, very good. And yes, the new book, The King in Orange, very good. You tied the occult and politics into a nice package there. I'm sure lots of people will enjoy it. And, the world is not what it is portrayed to be, especially by the media and by politicians. And you sort of touch upon that in your book and in plenty of your blogs.
Well, that's really the crucial point here. What you see when you're looking into, well, any screen, whether it's doing something online, or whether you're watching the television, if you happen to have that bad habit, or what have you, what you're getting is not reality. What you're getting is a little playlet put on. It is a put on, but it's meant to make you think that reality is not what it actually is.
It's a masquerade.
You tune into one of the mainstream news channels, and what you're getting is, well, basically garbage. You're getting somebody's version of what they want you to think the world is like. You're not getting the world. And so this is one of the places where magic and politics connect, because I mean, the basic idea of magic. Let's start with the definition here. Okay. Dion Fortune's classic definition of magic is that magic is the art and science of causing change in consciousness in accordance with will. Now, that's not what Harry Potter does, I know, but forget about Harry Potter. Harry Potter's manufactured by a bunch of... That's fine. You can enjoy Harry all you want, just don't think that he's doing anything that has anything to do with real magic.
Right.
You'd think I wouldn't have to say that. I mean, people watch Young Frankenstein and they don't think that's real science. And yet things that are all equally accurate as a portrayal of magic, people go, "Oh, that must be the way it is. It must be Harry Potter."
You got to admit, you must deep down inside wish there was a place like Hogwarts.
No, I don't.
I do.
Not really?
No, I do not.
Mike wants to fly on a broom.
I read boys' school fiction from England, where the boy goes to the boarding school and he has to deal with a bully, and there's this and there's that, and he tries. That's all Harry Potter is. Boys' school day fiction. Tom Brown's School Days. Upgraded with a dose of cheap fantasy. If you enjoy that kind of thing, great. J.K. Rowling loves you. She's the second richest person in England as a result of your activities or your enthusiasm. That's great.
We made her wealthy.
It's not magic. That's not what magic
No,
is.
of course not. No. I was just saying it's fun to think about. I mean, I
you
have
like the
practiced
concept.
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been practicing magic since about 2007, 8, 9,
Good.
one or the other.
Good.
And I've read a lot of the books. I've even written my own grimoire.
Good.
And I get what you're saying, but at the same time, there are, I mean, for me at least, and I would imagine they would be for you, just the fantasy, the idea of how cool it would be to have a world that actually had, fun magic like a Hogwarts. That's all I'm saying. I like it.
Yeah. It's very romantic, in other words.
Exactly.
Very romantic.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I have no idea if this is still the case, but back when I was a kid and science fiction had not yet fossilized into endless repetition of the same cliches, there was a particular science fiction magazine called Analog. And you knew Analog, it stood out from all the others because it had all of these engineers who read it. And when they got their issue, they'd go through it, they'd whip out their slide rules, and they'd go through it looking for technical mistakes. And if there was a technical mistake in the story, it would be in the letters to the editor the next time. You can't understand, if you're doing a particle accelerator, off they go into jargon. It was hilarious. I'm kind of that way with magic, okay? And so I'm like one of those hairy-eared engineers with Analog magazine. And when somebody does bogus magic, I'm going, oh please, let's see let's see the real stuff. Why don't we? I know it's a hang-up of mine. And if you enjoy Hogwarts or Warthogs or whatever turns your crank, that's totally up to you. Well, Hogwarts, Warthog, it's totally up to you. But no, real magic, the art and science of causing change in consciousness in accordance with will. And that's where we cycle back to politics, because that's what politicians are doing. That's what advertisers are doing. That's what media is doing to your head. They are trying to cause changes in your consciousness in accordance with their will to profit off you whether in terms of financial profit, or whether in terms of power, the basic coin of politics. And so whatever appearance you're being given, whatever image you're being shown, whatever the world is being portrayed like, by way of the mass media, by way of advertising, by way of all this schlock, take a hard look at it and say, okay, what are they trying to put across on me? How are they trying to change my consciousness so that they benefit at my expense? Because that's usually the way it works out.
You're right.
Absolutely. And of course, I forgot to do this, Mike. Every episode I have to hit the sound drop here of the birds.
Hello, birds.
Segue.
Yeah, it's a little segue, no doubt. But yes, the birds, very lovely, very lovely. And of course, I must ask you, John, since we have you here, what are your thoughts and opinions on the Salem witches who were trying to cast spells on Donald Trump to defeat him? Yeah, I'm dying to know your perception on these lovely women.
It wasn't just Salem, Michael. It was also in San Francisco, where there was covens out there as well.
I know. There was a hashtag
there was a huge
with
thing, the magic resistance. Yes, it was really embarrassing.
Yes.
There are some basic ground rules of magic here. Okay, if you're trying to influence people, you're trying to cause change in consciousness in accordance with will. One of the things you don't do is blabber about everything you're doing right out there in public. The Eliphas Levi, who was the founder of the modern magical tradition back in the 1850s, described these 4 magical virtues as to know, to dare, to will, and to be silent. One of my teachers used to say that: to know, to wear, to try that again. Know, to dare, to will, and to shut the fuck up.
Right.
Exactly. And there's an important reason for that. I mean, there's several important reasons for that. If everyone knows what you're doing, it's not going to be very effective. If you're playing poker and you show your hand to the other guy, you're going to get cleaned. Okay? If you're the Allies, you're trying to figure out where to invade France in 1944, and you let the Germans know where the landing beaches are, your guys are going to be slaughtered. And so these folks were ignoring that because, of course, well, we can get to the political and economic implications of virtue signaling later, but the basic thing they wanted to do was parade their opposition to Donald Trump, to say, I'm one of the good people. I am going to use magic to oppose Donald Trump. This is my right profile, and take your pictures now. It was very egocentric. And so there they are posturing around and proclaiming how they're going to do this and how they're going to do that, and casting spells, and bunny slope spells, by the way. Magical techniques run along like ski slopes. They cover a range from the bunny slope to the really difficult ones. All the stuff that was being blabbered about in the medium and all the other venues, the entire books of anti-Trumpery spells that were being circulated, were just the most puerile, basic sort of, if you study magic for 6 months, you probably already know enough to do better than this. But so they were doing these, and they were doing it out in public, and they were making all this noise and fuss, and they were failing. Do you remember when oh, come on, the Supreme Court Justice, Brett
Kavanaugh
lost his Kavanaugh. Thank
yes,
you,
sir.
Brett Kavanaugh.
Mm-hmm.
When Brett Kavanaugh was coming up for his nomination by the Senate, and this was before the 2018 election, and so before the new Congress came in, and so the Republicans had a very narrow majority. It was very entirely possible that he was going to lose. And the Democrats were pulling out all the stops, and they were coming up with canned rape accusations, and this, that, and the other. And the magic resistance types were going, we're going to do a big spell to stop Brett Kavanaugh from becoming a Supreme Court justice. And the day that spell was announced on the website, The Medium, the opposition to Kavanaugh's nomination collapsed in the Senate, and he was nominated and confirmed and sworn in without further delay. It was one of the best examples of total failure in the world of magic that I can think of. obviously, the entire thing wasn't a complete blow up like that. Donald Trump is not president now. We have to put up with Joe Biden, but generally speaking, the magic resistance did an extremely poor job, and this is one of the things I talk about in my book, and it can be, you can trace it very precisely. It's a function of their ignoring the basic principles of magic. If you know some of the rules and you walk through them, you can see, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. They did the opposite in all the cases. And so in some ways it was very useful because I can now use that as a teaching example to people who want to understand how magic works and how it doesn't work. I'd say, well, look at what they did. Go read up on this, read up on that, see what they did. Okay, you see all that? Now don't do it.
Absolutely. So yes, Mike, I'm sure you also feel the same way about these women out there who were trying to cast some sort of spell, and of course that didn't work.
I think what Mr. Greer has just spoken about makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've studied the books on magic, and that's one of the first rules is you don't blab about it. It's just full concentration. It's all your brain power focused on what you're trying to manipulate. If I may also add, I kind of find, I think, Mr. Greer, may I assume that you are close to 50, if not above 50 years old?
I'm close to 60.
Okay, so I'm 54.
I'm going to turn 59. I'm going to turn 59 this year.
He just sounds really young.
And yeah, he does. He sounds very young.
He sounds very young. Yeah.
What I was going to say is I'm not far behind you. I grew up in the late 60s and early 70s as a young boy. And what I'm trying to say is, since I've gotten older, and you know what, I sound just like my dad saying this, but since I've gotten older,
so do I.
All right, so now I've gotten older, and what I've noticed, since I am associated with magic, whatever you want to call it, witchcraft, Satanism, occultism, whatever, I've studied all of it. What I'm going to say is that I think there's a new generation of people that have emerged. And I don't think it's the same attitude and knowledgeable, educated people, be it in the younger political field or magic. And since we're talking about both, I'm using both those.
We were going to get there, Mike, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because to tag on to what you're saying, I was going to ask John, just like yourself, if he thinks the younger generations are, I don't know, hurting this sort of thing or not. I mean,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, TikTok.
It's
because
uneducated.
One of the number one hashtags on social media on TikTok. I don't use it, but I was doing some research here, and it seems like that's one of the top hashtags for the younger generations out there. Do you think this is hurting any sort of movement at all, or do you think this is?
Well, basically, let's start by putting things in context. We are at the tag end of one of a sort of cycle of public interest in magic. These things happen at intervals. The last one was in about the first 3 decades or so of the 20th century, and it ran its course, and it wound down, and magic went from being an interest of a small minority to a big pop culture thing to an interest of a small minority. Starting in the very late 1960s, we began another one of those, and it's lasted actually somewhat longer than the 70s. Yeah, it's a little longer than that one. So it went up, but according to most of what I've seen in terms of actual sales figures and so on, interest in magic, occultism, the New Age peaked around 2007, and it's actually been declining ever since.
Interesting.
If you remember back around in 2000, the 1990s and so on, every neighborhood practically you'd find a little Wiccan store or something like that. There were lots of little New Age shops. There were lots of little Wiccan bookstores. Most of those are now gone. And the interest has declined. Sales have declined. What we're seeing is kind of a last hurrah of a movement that was largely linked to an earlier generation. This was very much a sort of late boomer, early whatever you call the post-boom generation phenomenon. It's winding down, and that's normal. It
comes in a cycle. Normal. Yeah, it comes in waves.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly, it comes in waves.
I mean, look at Interview with a Vampire. I mean, everybody was sort of into that, and then that sort of died down in the 90s. A great example, and then in the 2000s, late 2000s. What did you see? You saw that movie Twilight, and all the girls and some of the guys even they went crazy for that thing. If you're into that, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm not gonna get in trouble tonight.
One of those things. Yeah.
If I may interject for 1 second, I think what you're saying here, and I get what you're saying, Michael.
Yes, sir.
At the same time, I believe, just as there's waves of things that become popular, let me specifically point out what I'm trying to say. Is an uneducated generation. It is a new generation. The people who don't go put both feet on the path and walk. It's those who dabble. It's those who pick and choose what they want to check out. Oh, I like this guy. Let me cast a love spell on him. So it's not exactly those people. You have to be 100% in whatever it is you may be. So if you're into magic, you have to put both feet in. And that's what I did. I had been knowledgeable about magic since 1980 when I was a freshman in high school because my brother knew about it. So I was reading about it at a young age,
he
following
corrupted
his
you,
footsteps, if you will, yeah. And I didn't follow it fully until I really dug my heels in 2006, and I began reading massive amounts of books and really beginning to understand. And by 2011, I wrote my first, hand-wrote, a 400-plus page grimoire. So I'm just saying, you've got to be fully into it, whatever it is you're into.
Now, as a point of comparison, I'm a few years older than you are. I graduated from high school in 1980. I got started practicing magic in 1976.
Right.
And I was not, I was a teenager at the time. I was not as intensive as I should have been, but 1984 it was that I actually began really serious practice. And the thing that I've noticed is that all along, while these hordes of people rushed into Wicca, or they rushed into this, or they rushed into that, the number of people who were actually taking it seriously was never very high.
Right.
I mean, frankly, a lot of people went Wiccan because it meant, at least notionally, access to plenty of cheap sex. Yeah. I have nothing against cheap sex, mind you. If that's what you're into, go ahead. But an enormous number of people, they wanted to dance around naked and get laid.
Yeah.
And
that's why some people get involved in this. They want
to. That's why an enormous number of people.
Right. That sex, magic, ritual stuff. Right.
Exactly.
Same with the vampire scene.
Yeah, vampires. Yeah, you can dress up like a vampire and everyone will think you're sexy. Well, like corpses are sexy. Oh, well. But I'm not a fan.
It's like you're saying, it's all just fad.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's normal. Basically, in every generation, there's a certain small number of people who are drawn to serious magical practice, and who are willing to not dabble, not mess around, not say, "Well, I want to do this." Well, this is my spiritual fashion statement for this week, or whatever kind of stupidity we're talking about. But who are actually willing to take it seriously and make things happen. It's always about the same number. But what happens is sometimes magic becomes very popular, and so you get this whole pop culture phenomenon of dabblers, and that's what we're coming down out of. What seems to be happening now is that people are starting to get into politics instead of magic, and that's actually that's a pendulum. That things swing back and forth that way between one and the other. And I'm frankly glad, because if they can all go off into politics and get found exotic political parties and march around yelling at each other, they're not pretending to practice magic, and they're not like making life less entertaining for me.
Right. Yes,
I'm sure politicians are just as grumpy right now. They're watching all these people running into politics and go, "Oh, must we?" But it's one of those things.
Right. And earlier during the conversation, I was wondering, do love potions actually work? I mean, I read something online where you would take someone's hair that you love and you say all these, you chant these little words, and all of a sudden this person just can't resist you all of a sudden.
Well, no. There are love spells and there are love spells. And this is something, one of the very, very good pieces of advice I got from one of my early teachers in this art, okay? There is one universally effective love spell, and if you do it, I promise promise it will work for you. It's very simply make yourself more lovable.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
If you do that, people will fall in love with you.
That's a good potion,
yeah, exactly.
yes.
You can now. The thing is, you can use potions to, as you would any other things. Potions make perfectly valid ways of reinforcing positive behaviors, eliminating negative behaviors, working with your own psychology, remembering to take baths more often, little things like that.
Yep.
But you can use, the thing is, you can use ritual, you can use symbolism. Those are powerful tools for helping to shape your consciousness, causing change in consciousness in accordance with will.
That's true.
But you can, so that's one kind of love spell, and if you do that, it works. I've seen it work over and over again. People who were having zero luck getting relationships, they said, oh, so the common factor in all my problems really is me.
Right.
So if I change myself, then, and away we go. But that's not what most people want to do. Most people want to go, well, I'm already perfect as I am, and so what happens? You can actually set things up with a love spell to make somebody feel unaccountably warm and fuzzy toward you.
Right.
And it might even work for long enough to get them into bed.
Interesting. Okay, well.
But here's the kicker. What almost always happens is that at some point, very often before you get them into bed, sometimes afterwards, they go, what was I thinking?
What was I thinking, right?
This person's a creep.
They snap out of it,
So they run the other direction. And then you have that remarkable phenomenon called magical blowback.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you're doing a working and the working does not land on its target, it bounces back and lands on you.
Back to you. Correct.
And so in the case of a love spell, the inevitable result is that the person who casts it ends up totally goopily obsessed with the object of their affections who can't stand them.
Interesting. Well, if that doesn't work,
I've watched it many times. It's really hilarious if you don't have to deal with it, but it's a miserable place to be. I managed to avoid that one. I managed to avoid making that mistake. But I know people who did, and it was not fun.
Does Sarah know about this, John? How dare you?
She is also a practitioner.
Did you cast a spell on her?
No. No, the two of us met in a student household when in my junior year at college, and we'd met before. We got to talking. We were living in the same house, so the opportunity, the means, motive, and opportunity were there, and we ended up tumbling into a relationship after a few days, and she was going somewhere else at the end of that school year. I was not. But after a few months, we said, okay, the separation thing is not going to work. So I moved down to Seattle, where she was at that time.
Nice. Okay.
We got engaged.
Very nice. And shout out to Sarah, by the way, for helping us put this together. Got to get her involved in the show somehow, even if it,
do that.
Yes.
But no, she is far more organized than I am. She's worked as a secretary, bookkeeper, things like that. So she's my manager.
Yes.
She does that stuff for me, and we kind of sort out the duties of maintaining a writing career, and life is good.
Very nice.
What Mr. Greer has neglected to inform us is that when they saw each other, it was when they were levitating and slaughtering goats that they really realized that they were meant for each other.
Right. It was after after he beheaded the goat.
I draw the line at slaughtering goats. I'm very fond
of course. I'm teasing.
I have taken care of goats. I lived on a hippie farm for a while. I took care of goats. We had a great relationship, and so no, I do not slaughter goats.
Of course not. I'm completely teasing you.
I wish I could levitate, but the thing is, she was. When we met, she was quite a good tarot card reader.
Oh, okay.
And I was practicing magic, and so yes, that and a shared interest in science fiction and fantasy and half a dozen other things. It was definitely one of those. Our friends were teasing us after like 2 days, saying, "You two are just such a couple of old marrieds."
That's funny. Well, if these potions and magic spells don't work, there's always alcohol. That gets the job done too.
That's the best version.
Yeah, I might look a lot. I always look a lot better to. I always look a lot better to women after a few drinks. That's true.
or at least you think so. Here, have some beer goggles.
Yeah, drink more.
Yeah.
I look better after
well,
this.
actually, the thing about the beer goggles and magic actually have a lot in common.
Do they?
Because in the same way,
you feel regret when you wake up.
Yeah, exactly. It's a temporary effect, and when it wears off, oh. So there are kinds of magic that are very much like beer goggles. Love potions, love spells are the kind you described, the sort of thing where you're trying to put a whammy on someone else to make them fall in love with you. That's a classic example.
Yes.
The other classic example that I always get is wealth spells. Somebody says, I want to get money without working for it. And they cast a spell. What always happens is they end up losing a bunch of money.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Every single time. And it's very simple. There is equilibrium in the universe in weird ways. There's a sort of force for equilibrium. Things balance out. I think the Taoists were really onto something with the whole yin and yang business. It all goes back and forth from yin to yang, from yang to yin. If you want to make money without working for it, someone else has to work for money and not get it. So you're adding to the total financial imbalance, the total economic injustice in the world, and that's going to land on you. And I've watched it again and again. People who think they're going to make money by magic, and they cast a spell, and then their house gets broken into, and all the valuables get cleaned out.
Well, people want a shortcut. That's what it's always about.
People want a shortcut.
Yeah.
If you want an effective economic spell, if you want a financial spell to make money, here's the thing. Do a spell that will help bring you opportunities to earn money.
Right.
Everybody I know who's done that, and has done it competently, of course, because magic is not foolproof. Fools are one thing it's never proof against. If you do that competently, and you do that with that intention, you're going to do fine. You're going to find those opportunities. You work hard, you make money. You'll be great.
And now
it worked for me.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Mike, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just got to ask a quick question to Mr. Greer.
Go ahead.
Do you find a difference in comparison between what we would consider either witchcraft, occultism, and or Satanism? Or do you seem to, do you separate them, or do you think they all fall in the same category?
No, I separate them quite sharply. Satanism is a religion. It's the worship of a particular being in Christian mythology. I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in the existence of Satan. There may be something there. I don't know. I'm not a Christian. I don't do that. I'm also less than pleased by some of the attitudes that some Satanists have. But that's their business. Yeah, that's their business. Witchcraft is also...
The reason I ask you is because I myself am a Satanist. I assure you, I'm not a headbanging, metal guy who's like, Satan. Okay. No,
you're not burning down churches and
no, of course
like
not.
That.
That's not me at all.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm a lover of animals. I'm a good person. I'm a decent person. I respect people.
Okay.
My point is this: Satanism to me changed my life because I sincerely believe the theory and method of Satanism is your own accountability. And
are you? Let me guess. Are you following the teachings of Anton Sandor LaVey?
Say again.
I'm trying to figure out which variety of Satanism you're into. Anton Sandor LaVey.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read other people's versions and takes on it, and I kind of gather what I feel is my favorites, the best parts, and I incorporate them into my method. And it all comes down to, as I said, just a list of things on how to live and be accountable for yourself. And just like you said, if you want to, for example, if you want to cast a spell to make money and get money, it's not about, you're going to cast a spell and all of a sudden a big bag with a money sign on it is going to show up with, money in it. That's not how it works. It's about furthering yourself on this planet while you're here and to get the most out of it as you can. And I think that's where a lot of people who aren't both feet in it, they tend to get mixed up and think that, well, I'm just going to do magic and I'm going to do a destruction spell and I'm going to get this person killed. It's not like that. You've really got to apply yourself to it. So again, that's why I asked you what you thought of magic fine. And Satanism.
That makes sense. But basically, magic as such is the art and science of causing change in consciousness in accordance with will. Lots of different traditions practice it. Many varieties of Satanism do. That's not my particular shtick. Witchcraft, depending on who you ask, there are the Wiccan types for whom it's a religion and has some magic on the side. There are people who are doing sort of the folk witchcraft thing, and it's kind of a grab bag.
Oh yes, the John Dee folks too, by the way.
Yeah, you have
get
people
them on
working
there.
the Enochian system.
Yeah.
There are ceremonial magicians, people who are doing like the Golden Dawn system. That's where I had my original training. Was very much Golden Dawn type stuff. People, Israel Regardi, Beyond Fortune, and so on. So you have that whole very formal, very structured ceremonial tradition. You have Druidry, the traditions of the Druids, where I ended up getting involved in that more or less by a series of accidents. The kind of things, if you put them in a novel, people would say, "Come on, that's not plausible," but that's the way that worked.
Right.
And it's its own thing. It is very much its own distinct thing. And that's generally true in the realm of magic. It's not just one thing. You have the Satanists over here. You have the Wiccans over here. You have the folk witches over here. You have the Golden Dawn over there. You have the Aleister Crowley followers, around the bend and down the straightaway, and the people who are practicing John Dee's work, and the people who are doing stuff out of the old medieval grimoires, and fill in the blank. It's a very, very diverse field where many different people are doing many different things, and I'm fairly well trained in a couple of those fields. I've got a lot of background in Druidry. I've got a lot of background in Golden Dawn style ceremonial magic. I've been initiated to several other things. I don't imagine there could possibly be any one human being who could know all of it.
There's no time.
Exactly. Yeah, I say you'd have to start with a lifespan of a couple of thousand years, and if you did that, by the time you got to the end of that, people would have invented so many more things. You'd still be at the bottom of the pile.
That's right. And you mentioned Crowley.
Aleister Crowley.
Do what thou wilt. Do you believe? Well, I was going to say, do you find him to be sort of like a bad influence for a lot of the younger people just dabbling with this sort of thing? They see him and they sort of read just a little bit about him. And they think, well, this is what it's about. Going against the grain, acting this sort of way. And go ahead.
The thing is, that's not Crowley's fault. The guy had a lot of faults. Okay, I'm not a fan of Edward Alexander, quote Aleister, unquote Crowley, no question. But he at least, to borrow Michael's phrase, he was in it with both feet. He was up to his eyeballs in the thing. He committed himself fully toward it, and his strange, lonely, not really very successful career, he at least was totally sincere about it and totally into it. There's the people who are just dabbling, who read a little Crowley and pick up the Book of the Law and go, oh wow, and so on. If they weren't doing it with Crowley, they'd be doing it with Gerald Gardner, or they'd be doing it with someone else.
That's true.
I knew people who did it with Beyond Fortune, but it's one of those things. Crowley had the huge advantage of good publicity after he died. Because there were actually there were many other people who were doing things that were frankly more interesting, who have been almost completely forgotten. And Crowley, who was just kind of one of the pack, has become this big countercultural figure. Go figure.
Right. He also said the apocalypse was an authentic prophecy, but it was distorted. Not sure exactly what he meant by that. There's many ways to interpret that, though.
Well, the thing is, interpreting the Book of Revelations,
right,
to fit something or other has been one of the most popular sports in Western religion since about 30 minutes after the book was written.
It's also another romantic theme, though. The apocalypse, everyone likes that. I mean, this show has that sort of underlying theme as well. The apocalypse sort of thing.
The apocalypse. And so yes, you can look at that, and you can have Crowley saying, "I am the great beast," and they were talking about me, and I don't think so, but that's fine.
So dramatic, yes.
You see, whatever, Aleister, whatever.
Well, you got to admit, a lot of people who are associated with magic, they are a little dramatic and eccentric.
Eccentric, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
it just sort of goes hand in hand. I mean,
you don't get into magic if you are comfortable in the cultural mainstream.
yeah.
You don't do it because the cultural mainstream says magic isn't real, it's fake, it's a lie, it's blah blah blah. How dare you? And so people, if you're gonna follow the dictates of the cultural mainstream, if you're going to be one of the popular kids and this kind of stuff, you're going to stay away from it. Except maybe you're going to join in working to prove how much you hate Donald Trump, so you can engage in a little virtue signaling. But to get into magic seriously, you have to be an eccentric. You have to be dissatisfied with the world as it exists. You have to be dissatisfied with the vision of reality that's presented to you by modern industrial society. And so that means inevitably the occult scene gets a lot of cuckoo clocks.
A lot of those folks. It's almost like we're talking about Anton LaVey here. Almost, it seems like we're describing him. He sort of jumped on that bandwagon as well. Yeah.
You mean Howard Stanton Levy?
Oh yeah, even more right.
LaVey. We'll call him LaVey.
Yeah, we can just call him
pseudonym. LaVey was one of the most brilliant showmen of his time.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he was able to say absolutely anything, however preposterous, and have the media just lap it up. In his own way, the guy was brilliant. And, and a fun writer.
Very
absolutely.
True.
And not to interrupt you, Mr. Greer, but I don't know if you know this or not, but Michael and I were the last ones to interview Dr. Michael Aquino.
Very true.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Me and Michael had a very friendly relationship. I saw him as more of like a grandfather figure, and I was someone that he emailed right away after he had open heart surgery. I had no idea that he had sort of this reputation online per se until much later. A lot of people were like, why are you talking to this guy? He's X, Y, and Z. How dare you? I hate you now. And I never had, the only conversations I had with him about anything else was, kind of brief. But we did talk a lot about psychological warfare, that sort of thing. But that's a whole nother story.
Which he was, of course, professionally very
he knew that I understood it. We had all these conversations, blah blah blah. But case in point, at the end of the day, we talked about normal, everyday things. Me and Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I view him as like a grandfather type, and all these people are like, "He's a monster. How dare you? You're awful."
No. So what I was getting at is Michael and I had actually interviewed him a number of times. In fact, Michael interviewed him more times than I did.
That's right. Yeah.
But and he had the closer relationship. But let me tell you, I respected the guy greatly. He was a genius. What I was getting at is Michael. Maybe you're aware of this, but Michael redid the Satanic Bible, and he did his version. He did a revised version of his idea of what the Satanic Bible should have been. And when we interviewed him, he even said when LaVey did the Satanic Bible, at the end of the book where the Enochian keys are, they were simply added just because they had no affiliation with Satanism whatsoever. Right. So, and LaVey's look on it was, well, who's going to know the difference? And he was right.
He was so right. LaVey.
And when I read the book and I got to the Enochian keys and then read my books on Enochianism, I realized I'm like, this is for summoning angels. How could the spells for summoning angels be the same for summoning demons?
The angels are going to help Donald Trump, by the way, to become the president in 2024. That's what I heard online. I'm not sure if that's true, though.
Who is going to?
Donald Trump. They said angels were surrounding him right now, preparing him for 2024.
For 2024.
Right.
You have to keep in mind. One of the things that's really starting to come to the surface, as in the post-election brouhaha, is that there is a real schism in American society, and a lot of what has passed for the sort of new age amalgam, you have all the sort of stuff lumped together. It's not actually the same thing. There's a whole movement of conservative, populist, rather Christian new age thinking And the people who are involved in it, by and large, are very strong Trump supporters. They're not in favor of the Democratic Party's agenda, and they're really starting to become visible at this point. And I think a lot of people in the sort of leftward end of the new age are just going, ah. But yes, there are the people who are talking about angels and the people who are summoning angels to help Donald Trump. And so, no, it's quite the active scene these days.
Yeah, I know. Michael plays me sound bites from just about every other night.
Yeah, those evangelicals, I drive Mike crazy with those. They're my favorite people on earth, though. I mean, they're talking in tongues. They're saying all these crazy things I don't understand. There's angels in Africa. I don't know what's happening.
It's hilarious. It really is. Whenever he plays his stuff and it's associated with politics, I'm like, how can these people really think? Well, I guess I just answered my own question. They take themselves so seriously by saying, Donald Trump is being guided by angels and God, and the reason he's not in office now is because he's battling George Soros and he's got to deal. I mean, oh my God! Like, come on, the guy's just human. Cut him some slack.
Exactly. What? Still, there is, in a sort of sidelong way, there's something going on here that's worth noticing. One of the things I talk about in my book, The King in Orange, is the way that Carl Jung's theory of archetypes explains a lot about what was going on with Donald Trump. Because one of the things that Jung talked about was the way that an individual, a charismatic individual, will become a target on which other people project an archetype.
Right.
And depending on what archetype that person embodies, you can watch things happen, and they'll kind of catalyze broad social changes. It can be a very positive change. It can be a very negative change. One of the examples that I use in my book is Adolf Hitler, who unquestionably embodied an archetype, a very destructive archetype, and who took that archetype right where it was
and ran
going.
with it. Yes,
and ran with it. Well, in German folklore, the old Norse god Odin is turned into a figure Wotan, the wild huntsman, who is this spectral huntsman who rides through the night with the souls of the dead trailing behind him. And if you see him, it's a dread omen, you're going to die. But he always connects back to the whole Norse mythology thing. And so one of the things you always know when the archetype of Wotan starts coalescing around someone is they're going to go straight to Ragnarok. They're going to go on a straight line to the biggest, most spectacular disaster they can manage. And that's what Hitler did. He very clearly embodied that archetype. Carl Jung wrote about him in 1936 when people thought he was a two-bit, politician who'd be out of power any day now. And he embodied this archetype. And he did exactly what the archetype was going to do. He went straight to Ragnarok, and everything come crashing down.
And one of the things that I do like about your book, and you just mentioned it now, are the psychological angle, the archetypes. I always mention that on the program. And America loves the authoritarian archetype completely. They love that for some odd reason. America is really obsessed with that.
Well, the authoritarian archetype, the archetype of the king, the archetype of the monarch, is a development of the father archetype. And since masculinity has become so problematic in our society, so problematized, people are so uncomfortable with it. The return of the repressed, whatever you try to, if you shove it out the front door, it comes in the window. And so what we have here with the authoritarian archetype, people they want their daddy.
Exactly, they want someone to hold their hand. I don't get it.
No. Mama holds your hand.
Oh, mama holds
daddy,
your hand. Okay.
Daddy tells you where the limits are.
Ah, I see.
Daddy's the one who wraps your behind when you have misbehaved, who lets you know that there are limits, and so makes you feel safe. Because limits, among other things, are the limits of safety. They're the point where okay, somebody cares enough about me to say no, damn it.
Understood.
And so a lot of what's going on in America today is people who are frantically trying to find daddy and find out what the limits are. And so the projection of the authoritarian archetype is one expression of that. All of the various bizarre forms of acting out, it's absolutely classic mass psychology. And so Trump, of course, was was another focus for him. Of course, depending on who you talk to. A lot of people on the left projected the archetype of the bad daddy onto him.
Absolutely.
He's the daddy who won't let you eat ice cream for breakfast. And so they melted down about that. There was a lot of archetypal stuff. It's one of the reasons that people wigged out so completely. You know that an archetype is in process when people can't think straight about it. Because archetypes warp consciousness like a black hole warps space-time. And so when you had, after Trump's election, and the people who'd actually voted for Trump were saying, well, here are the reasons we voted for Trump. We were afraid that Hillary Clinton was going to get us into a war with Russia in Syria. The Obamacare disaster, he was the only person who was saying, can we please stop having this situation which is legally requiring us to pay ever-increasing rates for lousy coverage. There was the whole issue with jobs, which is huge. And there were all the people who were frankly pissed as hell because of the way Hillary rigged the primary election, squeezed Bernie Sanders out. And these are the reasons why they voted for him. But the media and the left and all the pundits were going, no, racism. It was all racism. Nothing but racism. Nobody had any reason except they were evil racists. And it was bizarre. It was bizarre listening to them babble about racism and just doing it, of course.
Right. Yes.
And because if they don't have their thought stopper, if they don't have their, it was all racism, it could only have been racism, we're going to keep on shouting racism, racism, racism with our eyes scrunched shut and our ears plugged with our fingers.
Yes, this goes back to what I was telling you earlier, John, about the world is not what is portrayed by the media and by the politicians.
By the media.
And the world is a stage. You know that, John.
And in this case, though, it's not just people trying to project something that they want you to believe. They're trying to project something they want themselves to believe. They want to believe that the system as we now have it, the status quo, is good and perfect when it's not.
It's not. Yes, it's one of the things I always talk about here too, John. The fact that everyone sort of already knows that politicians are full of shit, yet everyone still bows to their feet.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a very straightforward reason for that. They may be morons. They may be as corrupt as the day is long. They may be schizoidally detached from the realities of everyday life in America, but they've got the power. They can hand out.
I like to accept your first comment on them.
Yes, those people are out of touch with reality. Something I harp on here constantly is the fact that the fact that most Americans love being lied to, as long as it makes them feel better, John, as long as it comforts them, who cares about facts or reason?
Right.
Well, the problem is, the problem there is who has facts. Because one of the great problems in an age of universal deceit is that you can't trust any side.
Absolutely.
You've got the Democrats coming with their set of bollocks, fake facts and badgers and buggered statistics, and you have the Republicans coming from the other side with another set of fake facts and bogus statistics, and you have various radical groups, all of whom have it's all spin doctoring, and so what are you going to believe?
Yeah, it's a matter of perception, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, John, it's just
the answer.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll finish. Go.
No, the answer is you're not going to believe anyone, but you're going to do whatever you need to do to keep your head down and stay out of trouble.
Right.
And so my take is that it's not so much that Americans love being lied to; it's that they do not think they can trust anybody, and so they just sort of nod and smile.
John, do you blame them though?
Get through the day.
Do we blame them for feeling that way, for not believing everything? Because, well, look at how everything goes. Nothing is what it seems. So you can't really fault them for feeling that way at all. Especially here in 2021.
It's a necessary survival move in a time of universal deceit.
Absolutely. And again, I'll add on to this. The lack of common sense and the lack of discernment is constantly at play, John. It's gross. It's gross. The world is a stage, Mr. Greer, and we are in a very small demographic compared to the millions of zombies walking around out there like empty vessels. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the truth.
No, it's truth, and there's all kinds of things designed to encourage people to be empty vessels. On the one hand, you've got television.
Oh my gosh!
Which is which is it exists. It's a prosthetic imagination. It exists to basically eat your brain. You have all kinds of other similar things that are just there to fill your mind with pablum. These days, you have the various kinds of bogus pop culture spirituality, mindfulness, meditation, and so on, which are all about emptying your thoughts, all about shutting down your thinking process so you can get through the day without noticing that you're being lied to, and which is why they're being promoted by Fortune 500 corporations. You have all of this stuff. And the one thing I will say in terms of taking comfort in such a dire situation is that we've been here before. This is absolutely normal in the declining phase of a civilization.
All cycles, yes. And you talk about the downfall of civilizations. And John, are you seeing that taking place right now?
Oh, good heavens, yes. Just remember, as Attila the Hun's mother told him, Rome wasn't sacked in a day. Most people who think about the fall of civilization think of it as something that happens like a Hollywood spectacular. There are big explosions and booms and bangs and crowds screaming as they run toward the horizon, and then it's over and the final credits roll. Not so. It takes, on average, 100 to 300 years for a civilization to wind down. Ours, by my measure, started its decline in the 1970s.
I was just going to say, I was going to say late 60s, but yep.
Okay, yeah, we're right around the same time.
Well, you have the sexual revolution.
The point I tend to mark is the first oil crisis, 1973.
I remember that.
Where we started. Yeah, so do I. The point where we ran face first into resource limits and had no idea how to handle it.
Yep.
And so from then on, if you look at just every metric you care to see, it's this ragged process of decline. Now, if it takes the average length of time, and I see no reason why it should do anything else, that means that we're going to bottom out in a dark age somewhere between 2070 and 2270 AD.
Oh my!
So it's not a fast process. So over decades, over centuries, think about the difference in your own life, within your own lifespan. Think about, say, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, when a working class family in the United States with one working class income could afford a home, a car, 3 square meals a day, all this kind of stuff. Now, a working class family with one working class income is probably living on the street. That's a huge change. In fact, it's the most politically explosive change in our time. It's one of the main reasons that Donald Trump got elected president, as it happens. But it's something that nobody wants to talk about.
Right.
Or
well, they push down our throats, the constant fear of you're going to get COVID if you don't wear a mask. And the fact is, whether you wear a mask or not, you might catch it. Then there's, now there's the new Green Deal and carbon emissions and how that's going to be used as a fear-mongering ploy by the media.
Well, in there, what's happening is that it's becoming increasingly clear that we're running short of fossil fuels. And there really isn't an effective replacement for them. So get used to intermittent electrical power supplies. The kind of thing that's been going on in California every summer that we saw in Texas. As you go toward renewable fuels, the renewable energy sources, wind and solar, great, except that they're not, you can't have them whenever you want them. The wind does not blow whenever you flip a switch. And so this is all part of what I call the crapification of everyday life.
Yep.
I like
which
that.
Which is the major driver of decline. It's a major symptom of decline in our time. It's not that things are harder to get so much, although if you're in the working class, you're going broke these days. But for many of us, it's not that things are hard to get, the quality is dropping through the floor. Watch portion sizes ratchet down. I mean, sometime if you can, go find a picture of a Hershey bar in 1960.
Yep, and look at the difference in size.
Yeah, they're like a quarter of the size now, and they've just ratcheted down bit by bit. The quality goes down, how long it takes before they break down in durable things, their nutritional content. This is even true in little things like vitamins. You look at the recommended daily allowance in vitamins. That used to be called the MDAR, the minimum daily adult requirement, the minimum you could get. Now it's the recommended daily allowance, and it hasn't changed. So they've gone from, this is the least you can do and be healthy, to, this is what we recommend. And pretty soon it's going to be, well, you don't need that much, because we're not going to provide you with that much.
Right.
Because the food we're giving you is increasingly shoddy and low quality corporate swill.
But don't worry, gentlemen. We have Joe Biden. You know, he's going to be limiting our burger consumption. So, you know, I'm quite excited.
Prices are going up on everything, and
Of
as
course
the
they are.
taxes go higher, especially as the prices of fuel go higher, everything
Thank
else
you.
is
Yes.
going to go higher. We are going to get slammed within the next 4 years on taxes and inflation.
One of the things that is really driving the inflation right now is the tendency of the government to just spin the presses and pay its bills by not from the taxes, but by just printing money. That's Zimbabwean, that's Weimar style inflation. And
So
whether
bad.
we will get that kind of extreme hyperinflation or not, prices are going up, and quality is going down. One more step down in the what I've called the long descent, the process that will land us sometime in the next 2.5 centuries in a dark age.
Yep.
It seems like that's going to eventually happen. I mean, other countries out there are sort of brewing for war. We have all the right ingredients, all the right people are quite pissed off around the world. They blame us for everything. So I see a great war ahead of our time here, John. In our lifetime, another big one is coming.
Yeah.
It's a very real possibility. One of the novels that I've written is titled Twilight's Last Gleaming, and it centers on a war involving the U.S. and China, and we don't win. It was. For that reason, it was not that popular.
It wasn't popular. Yes.
Yeah, no. But yeah, it's actually a novel about the end of the United States as a nation. The United States is falling apart into a variety of smaller nations and so on. I thought it was pretty good, and it's gotten the few reviews that it's gotten have been very favorable. Most people have just gone, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah,
That's Twilight's Last Gleaming. Still readily available at your favorite bookstore.
Yeah, look it up, folks. That's a great read. I haven't read it, but I'm sure it is a good one. Go ahead, Mike.
You should check it out. It's a lot of fun.
I just wanted to add to all of this is that, I was just saying this like 2 days ago. We're all running around, hating each other, killing each other. There's just so much hateness. There's so much hate.
Mike, can you repeat that again? I didn't hear you quite well.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
I hear you now, but go ahead. Say that what you were saying again. Go ahead.
All I was saying is that there's so much hate in the world. Yeah, there you go. That the people are so busy worrying about how they're going to eliminate this and change the world and eliminate climate change, but at the same time, they have no idea that there's probably a rock out in space with our name on it, heading straight here, and it's going to end everything. And we're worrying about killing people and starting wars, and it's really sad what humanity has come to, because we're squabbling over things that are so insignificant.
Well, the thing is, we always have been. If you look back through history, choose a period in history, whether it's in, Babylonia in 2000 BC or what have you, human beings were squabbling over minor points. They're really, we have fancier toys now. We have our chariots don't move a lot faster than the Babylonians' chariots. Okay, I get that.
I agree with you, and I know where you're going with this. It's that nothing's changed in like 10,000 years.
Nothing much has changed. The behavior of the U.S. in Afghanistan, as Biden is now trying to blunder his way out of a war without blundering his way out of it.
Right. Yeah.
But the behavior of the U.S. in Afghanistan is indistinguishable from the behavior of the Babylonian Empire in Elam back in the day. It's the same idiocy, endlessly repeated. And the basic lesson I would urge you to take from this is that human beings are not that bright. We really aren't.
We,
People like
we
to
think
go,
we are.
human
We think
beings,
we're better than everybody else, but we're really just an animal.
godlike. No. The thing is, we're a bunch of balding social primates. Okay, we're a bunch of balding social primates that like to jabber a lot. We live on the third rock from a medium-sized star, nowhere in particular in a very big universe, and we tend to get we need to get over ourselves. Really, we need to stop pretending.
My point.
Yeah. We need to stop pretending that we are the be all and end all in creation. This is funny because I was talking about one of my novels. Well, the series of fantasies I wrote, which are kind of H.P. Lovecraft's own. The Weird of Hully is the title, an epic fantasy with tentacles. And
sometimes I feel like this is an H.P. Lovecraft sort of ordeal that we're living through right now.
Lovecraft works. Lovecraft works surprisingly on this, but one of the basic points in that, humanity is not the measure of all things. We're not the summit of creation. We're not the goal of evolution. We're just another species, and we need to get over ourselves and focus our attention on making the best use we can of our time on this planet. And just,
and again, as I say, we're so worried. We're so worried about when the new iPhone's going to come out, and when when the next Game of Thrones episode was going to come out. So as I said, they're so preoccupied in thinking how great we are as a species of humanoids, or humans, I should say, and at the same time, it's all fleeting. We are a speck in the universe.
Exactly.
They're just worried about power and money.
Yeah, you were saying how great we are. And I just had this image of somebody singing a parody of the old Christian hymn, "How great we are." And the thing is, humans do. We love to sing hymns to our own glory and grandeur. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with being a species of balding social primate on the third rock from a minor star. It's what we are. We might as well get good at it. But we're not the be-all and end-all. We are not the point of existence. And, we need to get over ourselves.
Yeah, it's the ego that needs to be sort of checked.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks out there.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be amazed that it really hasn't happened to a majority of the country. That's why I also feel in a way that everyone should sort of consume psychedelics of some sort. That way it would open up their consciousness and really so they could see for themselves what terrible people they actually are.
Well, the problem is, do you know how long that one's been being tried?
Forever, since the dawn of time.
Just in modern history in the Western world, back in the 18th century, people were using the late 18th, early 19th century, people were using ether and chloroform and opium and thinking that was going to open the doors of perception. And then you get, and every new drug comes out and somebody goes, "Oh, wow, this is the one we'll try." All it does is get you stoned.
That's it.
All it does is get you stoned. And you go, "Wow, man." I've been there. I was in college in the very early 1980s at a college in Western Washington where Liberty Caps grew on the lawn in front of the university administration.
Those are good, by the way, for those that have never consumed those.
It was an experience.
Good. Right.
And, cheap LSD was readily available, and of course, the quality of the pot grown in Washington State is not quite up to the California, Hawaii levels, but there's a lot of it. It grows like a weed. And so, there was a lot of drug use around. I sampled some. This is back before, far enough before the...
I'm shocked.
Yeah, but it was one of those things. And I realized that there was no place I could get with the chemicals that I couldn't get just as easily, or not just as easily, but just as effectively, using my own mind, using techniques of meditation and ritual and things like this.
Right.
And that doing it the honest way, doing it without the drugs.
No shortcuts.
I had more control of the situation. I didn't have the downsides. And so, but unfortunately, there's the hope that you're going to find some gimmick there's drugs or something else that will enable people to suddenly look at themselves and going, "What am I thinking?" and shake themselves out of it. It's understandable, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Not for everyone. Sometimes it does ruin some individuals out there. I mean, I did have a friend who was doing psychedelics quite heavily out here in the desert, and he ended up just constantly doing DMT. He was constantly eating mushrooms. And of course, he was watching Seinfeld reruns on DVD, like 24/7. That's all the guy did. It was insane.
And so did he achieve some kind of?
No, not at all. I mean,
I would imagine not.
He turned to Christianity, and then he turned into being like this, going down the road of what are those gentlemen's name? The Black Hebrew Israelites. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he went down that path, and now he's not even religious at all. Now he's an atheist.
Oh, jeez.
A lot of people in the '60s used Christianity as a way out of the drug scene.
They still do.
Yeah, they still do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's an option, and in fact, I expect to see as the current craze for mindfulness meditation. I tend to think of it as mindlessness meditation because so many of the people who use it end up looking and acting like zombies.
Like zombies, right?
Very much so. But when the current fads for mindfulness meditation and pop culture Wicca and things like that, as those wind down, I expect to see a lot of those people going into Christian churches as a way out of that scene.
Right. But, I got to say, I'm sorry, but I see through the hypocrisy of religion and politics, and my perspective on that has not really changed, no matter how many times I've tried to look at things from another set of eyes, no matter how many magic mushrooms I consumed or cannabis I have smoked. I returned back seeing through the lies, John and Mike. Mm-hmm. And this started very early on in my life, though, John. When I was like in 7th grade, I already thought these things. And I've tried to change, but I always go back to that mindset. I don't know why.
If it's not your path, it's not your path.
It's not my path, yeah.
It's not your path.
I'm on the warrior's path. I acknowledge that.
There you go. One of the reasons that I ended up finding a spiritual home in Druidry is that it has this very definite polytheist concept of divinity. There is not just one God. There is not just one path. The universe is more complex and more interesting.
Yeah, there's more than one answer to your questions.
Exactly. There's more than one answer to your question. And in fact, Druidry was founded by a bunch of modern Druidry. Of course, there were the ancient Celtic Druids about which we know almost nothing. Modern Druidry was founded in the early 18th century by a bunch of English, Welsh, and Irish crackpots. There is no kinder way to put it. They were a really weird bunch of people, and they put together. They were looking at the options given to them by their culture. On the one hand, dogmatic Christianity. On the other hand, dogmatic materialist science, which was really hitting its stride about that time. And they said, no, none of the above. Well, what are we going to do? And so, they started looking into what little was known about the ancient Druids and the idea of a spirituality of nature and a spirituality which is not about dogma. It's not about somebody telling you what to believe. And so that's kind of what they did. And they were oddballs. They were eccentrics, and they launched a tradition that is still very much a living thing in the Western world these days. And because I'm also rather an eccentric person, I found it quite comfortable.
I think we kind of all are to a certain extent.
These days, yeah.
Per se, yeah.
I mean, there was a cartoon that I saw years ago. I don't even remember who drew it, but there's this big auditorium.
Druid.
And there's a banner saying Convention of Well-Adjusted People from Happy Families.
Right.
And there are 2 people sitting in this immense auditorium.
Oh, that's great.
And they're on cell phones, by the way.
On cell phones, text messaging each other.
I do have a funny story to tell really quickly. I was around my younger cousins and nieces earlier this week, and my cousin was texting my other cousin, and they're in the same room.
Oh my God.
I'm not even joking.
Oh, that's so sad.
I thought, where the hell am I? I thought, what just happened? And
that's so frustrating.
And these are young kids, by the way. So I'm like, my God, if I'm seeing them do this, I'm sure there are other kids that have it much worse that are doing things of this nature to a more exaggerated sort of procedure.
Oh, doubtless. But I will bring one thing to your mind. I will bring one thing to your mind, however, which is, didn't you do stupid things when you were a kid?
All the time. I'm still doing them now.
My guess is that and knowing a lot of younger people these days, and one of the side effects of being a writer and having a blog where I routinely field questions about occultism, is that I hear from a lot of young people. I hear from a lot of people in their early 20s. And a lot of them, they've grown up with the whole internet thing. They're used to it. They're bored.
I was a part of that generation too, though. Born behind the computer. I'm guilty of that too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they've seen all this. They've seen it all. They were sneaking looks at hardcore porn.
Sure. That's right.
And they're bored with it. And they're actually, a significant number of them are actually interested in doing something else now. So I actually have a lot of hope for the future right now, because they're, the sort of electronic world has done its worst, and kids have grown up in that, and they're going, okay, I've done that.
They're getting smarter, right?
What else is there? Well, there's this thing called.
But the sad thing about what you just said, and a perfect example. Mm-hmm. Young kids watching like super hardcore porn, and let me tell you, I've seen things that I never thought I'd see before on the internet. And my point is,
I have to admit that I'm chuckling at the thought of a Satanist saying this, but go on.
A child.
He's a Boy Scout. He's not even a Satanist, by the way, John. He's a poser. He's a Boy Scout. Mike, I'm playing. Go ahead.
I know. The thing is, like I was saying, for a young person, even at the age of early 20s, to be bored with the intense pornographic imagery that's online, that is a sad situation, because
that's true.
My goodness, I mean, if you're already bored by two girls in a cup, you got a problem.
Well, now keep in mind though, there's something going on here. Because one of the things that I think is sinking in is that it's not two girls. It's little colored blobs moving around on a piece of glass. It's just the image.
Right.
And what I've seen from a lot of people is that they're beginning to sink in just how impoverished an experience it is to watch something on a glass screen. You're not there. You're not part of it. You're not actually having the experience. You're not actually, in contact with these ladies. Okay,
that's why they get paid.
Yeah, you're watching this little, these little blobs of colored light.
These pixels, right?
Glass, and that is ultimately one of the most boring of all human activities. We're kind of getting into one of my hobby horses here.
Here we go.
I have not owned a television in my adult life.
I was about to say that John doesn't own a TV. Yeah, he hates TV.
Yeah, I don't do TV. It bores me to tears. And so I don't do television. I've never played a video game.
Never a video game, not even that.
Never played it. When I was a teenager, video games were like Pac-Man.
Well, yes. Yeah, of course, but that's a long time ago. I mean, today there's
I look at people doing that and saying, pinball's more fun.
Pinball, yes, I love pinball.
Exactly, and you see, so I never got into it. And generally speaking, there's an entire world out there that doesn't have to do with staring at little colored blobs jerking around on a glass screen. And I think what's happening with a lot of young people is that they're starting to realize that. They're starting to realize that when you're watching this or watching that or looking at this or surfing at that, all you're actually doing is staring at blobs of color jerking around on a glass screen.
Right.
Which is one of the most boring possible.
Right. You're jerking off while watching small pixels on a screen. That is true. But John, I got to say,
works for me.
It is pretty wild though. I mean,
I don't need to know that.
Right. He doesn't even know that. But it is crazy though to see that, like foot jobs, for instance, is like something that's really popular in porn. That's when I feel like, man, these younger kids, they're not even wanting a blowjob. They want a foot job now, thanks to Hunter Biden.
And my immediate thought is, why?
Some guys like feet.
Do you really want a case of athlete's crotch?
Athlete's crotch.
Athlete's crotch.
Love that. But yes,
my gosh.
there's lots of Al Bundy-like gentlemen out there online, evidently.
I'm sure
Wow.
there are. But
Yeah.
but there again, it's a fad. It will pass off. People are getting bored. What they'll come up with next, I don't even want to know.
I don't want to know either. I mean, there's 3D technology. There's 3D porn now. I mean, that's pretty intense. I've never viewed that, but
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, basically, what they're having to do is amp it up and amp it up and amp it up to try to get any reaction at all. Because when it comes down to it, it's still just blobs of color jerking around on a piece of glass.
Right. I want the real thing.
Exactly. There is a major difference.
There's a huge difference. That's right. You don't feel regret and shame when you wake up in the morning.
I do.
That's every day.
Once again, we're in territory I don't need to know about.
My goodness. Well, John, I must say we are at that point now where I have to sort of get serious for a moment here and ask you what your thoughts are on this sort of pandemic that we're going through. COVID-19, as you know, has been quite problematic for most of the world. The question is constantly asked, will you or will you not be vaccinated? That is the question, Mr. Greer. Go ahead.
I have absolutely no interest in getting vaccinated. I had the coronavirus back last April. I'd had colds that were worse. I understand that it's a serious problem for elderly people and people who are immune compromised or have certain other health problems. I'm not in any of those categories. And since I've already had it, and I treated myself at home, my wife and I both had it. We treated ourselves with using alternative healthcare measures. I'm not going to get into those now, but
that's okay.
But we had no problem shaking it off. As I said, I've had colds that were worse.
Wow.
And so I have no idea whether the vaccine is safe or not. Neither does anyone else. They only gave it 8 weeks of testing, which is not enough to find out if there are any long-term problems. So maybe it's perfectly safe. Maybe it has some serious problems. Maybe it's going to turn out to be the kind of pharmaceutical disaster like fen-phen or thalidomide, and major problems will come from it. I don't know. Just on the simple basis of looking at my risks versus my benefits, I see absolutely no reason to waste my time.
Understood.
Are you a traveler?
Not much.
Okay, because the only reason I bring that up is because now they're talking about this possible passport, vaccine passport.
Oh, yeah. And pay attention to what they're doing. The thing to keep in mind about the whole coronavirus panic is that this is one of those places where social class is an incredibly useful thing. Nobody in the working class is worried about this. The higher you go on the class ladder, the more people are freaking out. At the top, it's the rich who are just melting down completely. Why that should be is a complicated issue. But one of the things that I expect to see as things wind down is that air travel, you're going to have to prove vaccination.
Right.
Greyhound, nobody's going to worry about it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, Greyhound, they won't care.
The Greyhound, they won't care. In the same way, here, if you want to go into an upper end store, you better have you practically need a moon suit. They've got the big bottles of hand sanitizer. There's a story about that also. But big bottles of hand sanitizer. Everyone's in masks and they got plexiglass everywhere and arrows on the floor. And you go into the dollar store or some other working class place, and nobody cares.
That's true. They're less strict. Yeah.
As we have seen now with Florida, with Texas, with several other states, the masks and the social distancing don't actually work. They were a hypothetical measure. They're backed solely by theory. They have not actually done anything to change the infection curves. But people cling to them. It's again magic. Okay, right. The mask is the talisman. The social distancing is the ritual. People are clinging to those to give themselves the consciousness of being safe. And of course, that's part of it because nothing in life is safe.
Nothing is
safe.
And
the sad thing about it is that it's shoved down our throats. Like you can't come into the store without a mask.
Mm-hmm. I carry a mask in my pocket.
Yeah, you have to.
When I go
me too.
When I go to a store where they are freaky about it, I put on the mask. No reason to make a hassle.
Yeah, no reason to fight with them, no doubt. And again, I'm not anti-vax. By the way, I'm not an anti-vax or anything. But I've had tetanus injections, and
diphtheria injections and several others. I've been very glad to have them.
Sure.
I worked back before I broke into print. I used to work in a variety of odd jobs. I worked in a nursing home for a while. We actually had a patient with diphtheria infecting a wound, and so everyone got diphtheria shots. I was delighted. And I'm not anti-vax at all. I like my vaccines to have been adequately tested.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
I don't know that this one has been, and I want to see what the long-term consequences are. And we're currently engaging in a test with about 50% of the U.S. population as the guinea pigs.
Absolutely.
And we'll see what happens.
Yes, it seems like this was sort of rushed out there. It hasn't really been proven effective. So that's one of the things that, one of the reasons why I'm not taking the vaccine as of yet. Again, I'm not anti-vaccine, and I just brought this up on the last show. My mom, she called me and said if I wanted to make an appointment, she knows where to go, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I'm good. I'm just going to hold off as long as I can. So, most people, if they have to, they will get it. And of course, if you travel, it's probably a good idea if you do get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so you don't go through the hassle. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my dad and stepmother got it, and they should. My dad his health is not good. He's quite elderly these days. He has lung problems. He's had heart surgery, and it was totally reasonable for him to get it. He was seriously at risk.
Right.
I don't know how much good it will do to protect him, but there's at least a chance it'll help. But someone like me who's in good health and doesn't have those problems and doesn't have the various things that put you at risk, I really don't see the point.
Yeah, you don't go out anywhere hardly. You could order stuff now. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're good.
It's exactly, but it's just one of those. And again, I've had it, so I have whatever immunity results from that, and so which is no more than you're expected to get from the vaccine. So yeah,
that's right. It's really odd what's going on. No one really has any answer. For anything. The CDC is, like I said on the last show, they are like NASA, never a straight answer.
Yeah,
they keep changing the rules, it seems.
Yeah, the CDC is talking out of all four sides of its mouth, and several other orifices as well. It's just they're in a total state of befuddlement. I'm pretty sure they're saying whatever. It's the usual revolving door thing. They are a captive institution of the industry that they supposedly regulate. So they're saying whatever will boost pharmaceutical company profits the most.
Right. So millions of people have been vaccinated, and only a very small demographic have faced, serious health damages rather from the vaccine.
Yeah.
For some, it's working. For others, it's like a death sentence. But again, very small demographic, and I still think that it is a terrible way to go out. If you do indeed perish from a vaccine, I mean, can you imagine, John, dying from a vaccine? That sucks.
Well, my thought is I'm going to die of something.
But it doesn't have to be of a vaccine. That's kind of lame.
Well, but the thing is, and it doesn't have to be anything else. I could be run down by a car.
That's better, though.
Well, why?
Well,
It'll hurt more.
It'll hurt. Well, maybe you won't even feel it if you get hit hard enough.
Exactly. No, but seriously, being hit by a car hurts. I'm quite certain of that. So, no, the thing is, everyone's going to die of something, and but
not me.
I don't.
I just think
money on that,
John. I just think, John. I got to say, it's like overdosing on heroin without the high. I don't want to go out that way. I mean, at least let me go out high if I'm going to die. That's all I ask, John. God damn.
Well, that's the thing. Unfortunately, the universe is not listening. This is one of those H.P. Lovecraft things.
It is.
One of the things that was central to H.P. Lovecraft's stories, and I think it's one of the things that freaks people out most about them, is that his whole idea is the universe doesn't care. It's not listening.
Yeah, they don't care.
It does. It's just going about its way, and if you shout at it, it goes, huh?
Like Carl Sagan said, John, we are on a pale blue dot. Mm-hmm. This island Earth. No one cares. There's no rescue party.
Before, and what you guys are saying now, it's exactly right. The universe doesn't give a crap.
That doesn't give a shit about us. We are alone in the universe. We are this vessel floating through space, through the abyss, and there's no rescue party, John.
No, there's no. There doesn't need to be. My working guess is that there are countless living worlds scattered through space. And all of them are going through whatever complicated life cycles they go through. And we are just not that important. And that is something that's a source of relief One of the things that I find is, people get all caught up in these ideas of humanity's destiny, all this garbage. And what a burden that would be if we were actually the big important beings in the cosmos. What a terrible burden that would be.
It really would be.
Instead, if we're just one more species of social primate, we can just relax and maybe get over ourselves, get down off the high horse, and try to have a good life.
That's what most people forget. To have a good life and to be prosperous, that's...
Have a good life, prosper to the extent that you can. Yeah. Whatever part of the historical cycle you're born into, it so happens that I was born right about the time the industrial society peaked, and I'm going to watch the first however many years of the decline. And that means that I have certain benefits and certain costs, and there's certain things that I will be able to escape, and certain things I probably won't. By the time, if I live for another 20 years or so, let's say, I expect by the time I go, electricity is going to be very intermittent in this country. And a lot of other goods and services that people thought just, well, of course you have those. When I was young, won't be around anymore.
That's right.
Just one of those things.
That's right. And I also have to bring up another subject that I think you're quite interested in, is ufology.
UFOs. Yeah.
Yes, another subject that comes in waves. Back in the 50s, it was popular, then died out, and then it got popular again. And, we see it all over mainstream media now. And, of course, we're seeing headlines that say strange UFO sightings pearled by U.S. maybe hypersonic drones from Russia or China.
It's always the military. It's always either the military or some people with secondhand connections to military, the intelligence, saying, look, I saw a spacecraft from Zeta Reticuli, or what have you. I have a book on the subject.
Yes.
I recently came out with a new edition of it. The current edition is called the UFO Chronicles. It has had the amusing effect of being denounced and then ignored by both sides in the UFO controversy. Because I don't believe the UFOs are extraterrestrial craft, and I don't believe the UFOs are all just illusions and hoaxes and things like that. The evidence that I have, that I've reviewed, suggests that much of the UFO phenomenon, not all of it by any means, but much of it, including some of the most famous cases, were manufactured by the U.S. Air Force to cover up known secret aircraft testing of various kinds.
Right.
If you look through the history of ufology, 1947 through, say, 52, what people saw were little silver dots crossing sky high up there. We were testing high-altitude balloons then. After then, there were various kinds of strange lights doing stuff at sunset and sunrise. We were testing the U-2 and the SR-71 then.
Right.
There were also early satellites. That's getting into the 60s. The 1980s come around, and all of a sudden, black triangles. What are these mysterious black triangles? Take a look at a stealth plane sometimes and tell me what they were testing. Now, it's the Navy. The Navy is talking, we have this strange alien craft. They're testing something.
They're testing something. That's what
They're testing something.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
They've trotted out the same excuse as an attempt to confuse foreign intelligence agents and domestic critics of defense spending. There's all this yelling about Area 51. It's a real place, of course, and there are mysterious planes that take off from it. They're called spy planes. That was the major spy plane base of the U.S. Intelligence community for the longest time. Nowadays, they have a couple of things that haven't been admitted yet. I figure we probably have about 10 years before the SR-91 Aurora and the CR-3 Black Manta, which are the two rumored at this point, before those become public the way that the F-117 and the B-2 did.
Right, and another clue to take note of is the U.S. Navy did issue guidance to its pilots a long time ago about what to do if they do encounter a UFO. And that guidebook, I've heard a lot about it. I had a friend actually in the Navy that mentioned that to me. That, if they saw something in the sky, you would have to report to whoever's in charge, whoever is.
Yeah, exactly. Because on the one hand, it may be one of ours. On the other hand, it may be someone else's.
Right.
James Orberg has this, who's a skeptic. Although he has this great article on a set of UFO sightings that turned out to be the testings of a Soviet missile delivery system.
So all these sightings that we're seeing right now from the Pentagon, that, in your opinion, that's probably ours, would you say?
That's Certainly the ones that the Navy is making a big fuss about.
Yes.
Those are ours. When the military starts making a fuss about, they're raising a smokescreen to cover a new defense test.
Yeah, the USS Nimitz, that footage.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
From 2004.
I don't happen to have seen that. I would not be at all surprised. Keep in mind, they're perfectly capable of faking footage.
That's true.
The thing to keep in mind is that all of this, the whole UFO thing started 3 years after the D-Day landings. And D-Day was the greatest publicly admitted use of organized deception in military history. To fool the Germans and make sure they did not guess where we were going to land in France, the U.S. and the British literally created a fake army. We had inflatable tanks. We had these immense military bases with crews of actors who were scampering around, pretending to be many more than they were. They had the fake radio traffic. They did everything in their power to just fake out the Germans. They were dropping messages in places and getting the French resistance to nose around the area around Calais, which was not where we were going. And under total secrecy, using this as camouflage, we got everyone toward the western part of Britain where the Normandy invasion was launched from. And so just 3 years later, the whole UFO thing takes off. It's the same thing. And a lot of these sightings, a lot of these footage, a lot of this stuff is the exact equivalent of those inflatable tanks.
And what about someone like Jack Parsons and Wernher von Braun?
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of these folks? All of a sudden, I'm starting to think of Jack Parsons.
Jack Parsons.
Yes.
Jack Parsons was a strange cat.
A very strange cat.
Do you know he was an occultist?
Of course. That's why I was mentioning him to you. Apparently, Wernher von Braun was saying that it wasn't actually him that was the true father of the American space program. It was actually Jack Parsons.
It was Jack Parsons.
That's
Jack Parsons was a rocket scientist. He was a brilliant rocket scientist. He was also a student of Aleister Crowley.
Right.
He was very heavily involved in occult practices, and if he hadn't blown himself up experimenting with the nitroglycerin.
He lives, if Jack Parsons was still alive, I mean, he stayed at Palm Springs, which is about an hour from here.
Oh yeah, if he lived, he might still be.
He might be alive. Who knows?
I say get him on the radio.
Get him on the show.
Unfortunately, no such luck. But Parsons is a fascinating cat. I'm glad there are some good bios of him.
Absolutely.
Wernher von Braun, I've never really looked into. I've always suspected that to get anything accurate on him, I'd have to have a better reading knowledge of German, because everything published in the United States has the sticky fingerprints of publicity release all over it.
True.
But the thing is, there's a lot of overlap in some of these strange ways of thought. Some of the occultism to space travel, occultism to science fiction. I mean, a remarkable number of the great science fiction authors of the mid 20th century were up to their eyeballs in occultism. Fritz Lieber, I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
I believe so. Mike, by the way, I just want to quickly say, Mike, you believe in extraterrestrials, right? You believe there's life out there, right, Mike? You're interested in space and all that. You know that.
I am, most definitely.
Yeah.
However, with the recent bit of information that I've recently acquired, I sincerely do not believe that there are extraterrestrials coming here to this planet to watch us. I just don't believe it, because I don't care how far advanced they are, I just don't think that they are capable of folding space and traveling at the speed of light to get from one universe, or I should say from one solar system in our galaxy to ours. I just don't think it's possible.
Exactly. The sheer amount of energy that it would take is more than any civilization is likely to be able to come up with. And which is why the Star Trek franchise has to wave its hands about dilithium and so on. They have to come up with some kind of gimmick.
Right.
I figure that, as I said, there are tens of thousands of worlds out there, maybe millions, maybe billions of worlds out there. And right now, on some distant world, there are strange creatures with six-faceted eyes who are looking up and pointing with an appendage that is certainly not a hand at this little yellow star up there and saying, "I wonder if there are intelligent creatures on a planet around that star." Of course, they're pointing to our sun, but they'll never know.
True. Very true.
The only way I think they could know is if they had some sort of a viewing system in space, such as the Hubble, where it can see the planet and perhaps see there are things going on around it outside. And by that, I mean like satellites.
Right.
And,
like satellites,
yeah, or even detect radio waves coming from our planet. That's
one
of the key things. That's one of the key things that our scientists do is they point in directions and listen for radio waves to come from another section of the universe.
And I think that's actually the most likely thing. My fiction, again, one of my novels is titled Stars Reach, and it has to do with radio communication between worlds. But yeah, I think, one thing that we might happen, you gotta wonder, at Alpha Centauri right now, they're 4 and a bit light years away from us, okay? So potentially they've been picking up on our television signals. Right. What do they think of My Mother the Car?
Or Leave It to Beaver.
That reminds me of
Leave It to Beaver, exactly.
Yeah, that reminds me of the zoo.
Here we are on Delta Pavonis 4. They picked up signals from an alien civilization. It's Leave It to Beaver. I say no wonder no aliens are visiting us. They've redlined the solar systems. They get huge signs on the Van Oort cloud outside of the order of Pluto saying, "Stay out. These creatures are crazy."
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say, Michael?
I was just going to say, I'm copying John here. He's getting me sort of in the mindset of saying like he does. It's contagious. I had to stop myself so many times here. So all this talk reminds me of the zoo hypothesis. Extraterrestrials kind of see us as like animals. Basically, why would they want to interact with us? They just speculate from afar, maybe a safe distance. Maybe that's a lot safer since man is wolf to man, as I always say here on this program.
So you're saying man is wolf to aliens?
Man is wolf to aliens, correct.
Man, or not wolf. I mean, what would it be? Denebian slime devil or something like that. Man is Denebian slime devil to alien.
Remember what Stephen Hawking said when we sent out, I believe it was the Voyager 1 or 2 or both, when they sent out the golden disc.
Right.
Which is, one of the great comments that he made in reference to that was, you don't scream out when you're lost in the jungle. So by sending an invitation, for lack of a better term, sending out a space probe with an invitation, like, here we are, we're soft pink humans. Come kill us, come eat us. So if there is indeed an alien race out there who does have the technology to get here, again, I don't believe that.
They don't have a turntable to play that record.
They'd have to order it on Amazon.
Yeah, you got to order it on eBay.
Watch. 10 million years from now, an alien space probe will come drifting into Earth's atmosphere, and some distant civilization, perhaps, let's see, a species descended from chipmunks will field it, and they'll say, "What does it say?" And it says, it has a message saying, "Could you please send us a turntable?"
Yeah. They're going to say our computer.
Hilarious.
They're going to say the computer reads that. What is this about? Elvis and Johnny B. Good and the Sumerian language. What is this crap?
Yeah.
I say, what the fuck is this?
A review.
They're going to leave a better review.
Send us some Cheetos or something so we can listen to it and eat while we're listening to it.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. That was a good one, Michael.
Right. And John, I got to ask you, I was reading some of the reviews that they gave you on your book. Yes. And, they didn't really give you that. I'm talking about The King in Orange. They didn't really give you too good of reviews, by the way. I did kind of want to go over that with you and just sort of like, because, we do things a little bit differently here. And, I feel like you're open and you're honest and, you don't really care about that sort of criticism, which is why you're on here. I have a lot of respect for you. I know you don't really give a shit about what these people have to say, but they gave you really bad reviews. And one guy, he kind of hassled you.
Is this on like Amazon?
No, it's on Goodreads.com.
where they don't even have it yet.
Right. And this guy said, first of all, thanks to Net Galley for letting me read this book for free. I feel like John Michael Greer thought up of a good idea for a book title and worked backwards from there. Just not with great results.
I read the same thing, Michael. I read the same thing on the link you sent me.
Yeah, what do you make of these people, by the way? Do you think they sort of went into this thinking the wrong thing before they actually read the... Well, they didn't even read the book.
Well, the thing
most
is,
of them.
The idea that a reviewer would read a book, most authors, if you tell that to most authors, they'll start giggling. Because I'm sure it happens that book reviewers actually do read books now and again, but it's never happened to me. And,
right.
But the thing is, this book is challenging. This book is deliberately trying to contradict or setting out to challenge some of the basic, wrong, but widely held assumptions about the nature of power, about the nature of social class, about the nature of magic, and about the nature of what happened in the United States between the beginning of Trump's presidential run in 2015 and today. And so, just as when I ran many of these ideas on my blog, I got, let's just say, I heard from people who were outraged.
Outraged, yeah.
Some of them were yelling and swearing and spitting tacks, and some of them were whining. I got a lot of whine.
Oh, I bet.
And some of them were doing the very reasonable concern troll kind of thing, and this and that and the other. It was really quite... I considered actually sort of categorizing them and doing a post where I just listed them and giggled.
The fact that you said concern troll won me over again.
Yeah, well,
that's hilarious.
No, it's a known thing.
Yes.
I'm just concerned about you, and that's why I'm saying all these nasty things and trying to distract you.
We get a lot of emails like that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good Lord.
But yeah, so the thing is, I know I'm going to get the same thing on Goodreads and so on. There are going to be denunciations. I'm hoping that I get myself denounced in like the New York Times.
That's a better platform. That's a better platform.
Oh, that'll sell thousands of copies.
Absolutely.
The thing is, I've also heard from a fair number of people who have read it, and of course, I heard from a lot of people who read the blog, because those blog posts were among the most widely read things I've ever written online. And for every one person who pitched a fit, or who whined, or who did the concern troll business, or what have you, there were 15 or 20 who said, "Thank you for saying this." And so, because I don't really care what my critics think, I really don't. And because I'm also aware that I'm saying things that a lot of people find very, very uncomfortable to think about. And so many of them are not thinking about them. They're just, going, "No, I think you shouldn't," or what have you. I'm not worried.
Right. And my favorite chapter, by the way, is the orange sign. Page 86, to be more precise.
Give me just a moment.
That would be about 4chan, when you talked about...
Oh, yeah, about the Chan.
Coming of the Keck Wars.
That was a hoot. That was a very, very strange phenomenon, because I happened to have the chance to watch that as it was happening, because I had some readers on my blog who were also habitués of the Chans. And they kind of, when I started posting stuff referencing Trump, I started getting messages from them saying, "You really might want to surf over here and check what's going on, because people are dabbling in magic." And that's what happened. You have, of course, the Chans. I mean, the Chans have been demonized at this point, but it's typical internet culture. You have these message boards. All messages are anonymous. People can say whatever they want, which means, the more outrageous, the better. And they started out talking about video games and went from there. And you have these message boards on most of the Chans that are into politically incorrect ideas. And they got very deeply into Donald Trump early and often, precisely because so many people on the left, so many people in the mainstream just melted down as soon as you mentioned the orange man.
Pretty powerful magic right there.
Pretty powerful magic. The thing is, one of the things that makes Trump so fascinating is that so many people on the left literally can't not think of him.
Right.
That's true.
He owns their brains.
Yep.
And
he was on all the time, 24 hours a day, getting hit by media and politicians. Like, you just couldn't escape it.
Exactly. It was all Trump all the time, and it was fascinating to watch. But the people, the folks on the Chans got into that And then some of them started getting into chaos magic, which is one of the various flavors of occult practice out there. And they started doing various kinds of chaos magic workings in favor of Trump's campaign, because they liked Trump, they liked his attitude, they liked the fact that he was driving the liberal establishment into a state of frenzy. That was, of course, endlessly entertaining. And the more they did that, the more strange coincidences started piling up, and the more just odd things began to happen. And it was one of those things that you get used to if you know your way around occultism, where things just pile up moving in a given direction. And that was I chronicle some of those things in that chapter and talk about how the Keck Wars unfolded, how these people stumbled across an ancient Egyptian deity that they seemed to be in contact with somehow, and it was an amazing trip.
It really is. It's quite fascinating to see what happened and how internet culture was so influential in the election. It played a tremendous part for Trump to be elected. I would honestly say that. I mean, it played a tremendous role.
It played a significant role. Of course, Trump worked very hard to win the election, and frankly, Hillary Clinton worked overtime to give it to him. Although, of course, she didn't intend that. She ran. I mean, I've been watching presidential elections since Richard Nixon won his first term,
right?
And I have not seen a worse presidential campaign than Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Hers was real bad. It was pretty embarrassing. That's true.
It was just watching her bumble her way through, going through the motions, and never getting around to giving anyone any reason that their lives would be made better by having her in the White House.
That's right. Same with Biden.
Yeah. Well, do you remember when Hillary first ran in 2008, and she started out her speech announcing it with, "I am so ready to lead." It was all about her.
It was all about her. Yeah.
It was all. She was staring into a mirror on which she'd painted the presidential podium, and and that was the whole basis of her campaign. It was all totally self-referential. And you had people like Madeleine Albright saying, there is a place in hell for women who won't help other women.
Ooh.
And she's doing this, and all the women, working class women, women of color, women who did not have Madeleine Albright's more than sufficient salary and benefits and other advantages. What were they actually going to get out of a Hillary Clinton presidency, other than whatever vicarious benefit they'd get from having a woman in the White House? What was it actually going to bring to them, other than more of the same disastrous policies that had been bearing down on their lives for years? And yet, the Clintonistas couldn't see that. They were literally incapable of seeing it. They would get polls where it turned out that most Americans disliked and distrusted their candidate, and their response was, "Oh, well, we just need to reintroduce her to them."
Yeah.
And so they didn't already know her well enough. It was just bizarre.
I had a hard time thinking that she would win, not with the fact that most women don't vote for other women and these sort of things. I mean, that's kind of known, but I was going to say her policies were kind of
weak.
They were weak, and they were sort of unknown, sort of sketchy. You didn't really get much of an answer.
Yeah,
right.
It was very clear that she was running on the campaign of "I want to be president."
Right.
That's it.
She did nothing. And no, the thing is, that's true of any candidate, right? We all know this. Nobody runs for president out of some kind of self-sacrificing sense of service and duty.
Not since Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I can say, he's not running, and B, he wasn't an American citizen, so I don't think he would qualify under the Constitution.
Well, that's
it's
true.
like all the campaign bumper stickers for Cthulhu for president. Have you seen those?
I have seen those, but yes,
Muslim. There we go. Why settle for the lesser evil?
Right.
I'm sorry to say that Cthulhu is in trouble because, he, as far as I know, he's also not an American citizen.
Well,
Cthulhu.
Nowadays it doesn't
matter.
That
was my first book I read on occultism. I read the book of the Necronomicon, and I'm still fascinated by it, even though I know
Hey,
it's not.
there's a lot of people that do take it quite seriously, though. The
Oh
Necronomicon.
yes, there are Cthulhu religions,
the Simon Necronomicon, yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm still fascinated to this day about it. And I actually own one of the hardcover books that was released in the 70s, worth like over $300-$400, maybe more.
One of the
now, but
which one was it? Who was
the Necronomicon, the black one? I think it was the 3rd edition that came out. There was only 6,666.
Yeah.
But it's still, it was just a great. I love the book, and that's actually what really pulled me in towards occultism.
Okay. I really enjoy H.P. Lovecraft's fiction. I don't share a lot of his opinions, but I love his imagination, and that's one of the reasons I ended up writing a bunch of sort of para-Lovecraftian fiction, precisely because I like, I get along well with tentacle horrors.
I
think they're cute. I think octopuses are cute. Okay.
Did you happen to see Color Out of Space, by the way, with Nicolas Cage?
No, I don't do a lot of visual media. I have read the story though.
Yeah, it's a good story, but the movie is not that.
That's the one Lovecraft story that I find really scary.
What's
the
it
others
called?
of his?
The Color Out of Space, by the way.
The Color Out of Space.
Michael, that's a movie?
It's a movie now. Yeah, it just came out.
Oh, it's been a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Oh, if you have a chance, it was done before. There's a really bad B movie titled Die Monster Die.
Die Monster Die. Yeah.
Die Monster Die, which is based on The Color Out of Space. It is absolute schlock, and if you ever need a really good bad movie night, that's the movie. Plenty of popcorn. Be ready to laugh.
There's also a very awful Misfits song named that too.
That's right. I was just going to say that, Michael.
Yeah. By the way, Mike was the singer for the Misfits for a while there.
Oh, cool.
He's a musician.
Do you even know who they are?
The Misfits?
Do you know who they are?
I have a dim recollection of having a friend of mine play me some tunes from the Misfits.
He's seen the logo, I'm quite sure. Most people have.
I've seen the logo. I'm sure I've seen the logo. But I have a dim I could not name you a song, but yes, I have heard of the Misfits.
Very nice. But yes, Die Monster Die is a terrible song, but yes, it's also very relevant.
I will listen to that. That sounds like fun.
But yes, going back to really quickly, just to wrap it up here with terms of, the voter election fraud sort of deal, that sort of. We won't get too far into it, but I'll just say this: isn't there always election fraud to some extent? Didn't Bush lose to Gore back in the day?
Election fraud is as American as apple pie.
Right. Okay.
Seriously. Who was it? Was it Gershwin? I think. I could be misremembering. There was a lovely musical called "Of Thee I Sing." It was from the 1930s. Like 1930-31, right around then. And it's a political musical. It has to do with the presidential career of Jonathan Wintergreen. Wintergreen for president. It's great. It's a hoot. The whole thing, it revolves around the idea that American elections are completely fraudulent.
Well,
in 1931.
Well, that I agree with you with, totally.
Yeah. I mean, look up Boss Tweed sometime if you think there's anything new about this. The American electoral system, it is not difficult to make a democratic system that's immune to fraud. The British have a very clean system. There is a total chain of who has ballots from the moment they're cast to the moment they're counted. They are counted in a public setting with people from every party hovering down, and they're counted by volunteers from all sides. They're double checked. It's not that hard. Neither American party wants that because our system is riddled by fraud.
Right.
And that's how it works these days. The thing, people have this weird idea that we are some kind of mature democracy. The United States is a third world banana republic. It's a third world banana republic that has a really big military right now. But that's the big difference. And a big military and a lot of money. But our politics are third world. Our politics are banana republic. We have elections with serious problems with corruption, and the only thing that really balances it out is that both sides cheat about equally. Yeah. So it only matters if it's a close race.
Yeah, the American people are starting to wake up and see that the political system is just as corrupt as it is in Mexico.
Exactly.
Since we do make lots of money from
Mexico
and so forth.
Mexico these days has a slightly more honest system. They had a lot of reforms recently.
Very true. And once again, I do have to say, going back to this, was there election fraud? I don't know. The courts say otherwise, and that's what we're going to go with. But I'm willing to say political parties and their factions all do something that would be classified as questionable.
Yeah, I wasn't there. It looked very suspicious. Some of the things that happened looked very suspicious. I assume that, as with so many things like that, we'll never actually know.
Right, John. And I didn't have to be on the Titanic to know that it sunk.
There's that.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yes. Some pieces of evidence are kind of hard to ignore.
Right. And of course, in the chat room, they said the Reanimator, which is also another great H.P. Lovecraft movie, a favorite of mine. Yeah, the Reanimator. But also The Mist, also based on H.P. Lovecraft, but it was by Stephen King. The Mist.
Which one was the Mist? That's one. I'm trying to think of which Lovecraft story that might have been from.
2007. I'm pretty sure it was inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, all these guys, they were all inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. Let's be honest.
Everybody was. Yeah. No, Lovecraft really invented a new kind of horror. He took, horror was fixated on all these old world images, vampires and werewolves and so on, and ghosts, endless numbers of ghosts moaning and going boo. And so he said, this is dull. Let's do something a little different. So tentacled horrors from the dawn of time and slithery shoggoths and all kinds of other fun things, much more entertaining.
Are you interested in watching King Kong versus Godzilla? Is that anything that interests you at all, or are you much more of a fan of the old ones?
When I was a kid,
there you go.
Kaiju movies, Japanese monster movies, were something I'm very much like. I simply don't do a lot of visual media these days.
Understood.
There are too many good books to read.
Yeah, well, there's plenty to read. Very true. Mm-hmm. And by the way, one of the last things I did want to mention to you here before we do wrap it up, and of course, I wanted to mention Elon Musk to you, and wanted to get your thoughts and opinions on what he feels is completely necessary with humanity, that we will be leaving Earth very soon. It makes me kind of feel like the elites know that the Earth is doomed and it's going to cease to exist rather soon, sooner than later.
Elon Musk is not the elite. Elon Musk is a rich promoter.
He's a hack.
He's a guy who's made a bunch of money, mostly off government contracts. That's where the money is these days. Do you know why the United States and the Soviet Union both dropped their manned space programs like a hot rock in the early 1970s?
I'm not sure.
It's real simple. And if you look it up, you can find this quite readily. Outside of Earth's magnetic field, deep space is full of hard radiation. We have this giant unshielded nuclear reactor.
Oh, you mean the Van Allen belt?
No. I'm not talking the Van Allen belt. I'm talking outside that.
Oh, you're talking way. Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
In interplanetary space, space is full of hard radiation from the sun. It's full of beta particles, gamma rays, all kinds of stuff. It's the sun pumps out as much radiation as it does light and heat, and there is no magnetic field around the moon. There is only a tiny, weak magnetic field around Mars, not enough to keep these things at bay. One of the reasons we're not going to Mars, and one of the reasons the U.S. and the Soviet Union both canceled their Mars programs in the early 70s, is that they realized that by the time, because Mars is a long ways away, it takes months to get there through space. It would take like 8 to 9 months to get a spaceship there. It's way off.
That's a long time.
It's close. Mars is not. By the time you get there and land and come back, you're dying of cancer or possibly just a radiation poisoning.
How fun.
How fun. That's why they dropped it. And the problem is nobody can admit that, because the idea of space travel is such a fantasy, such a part of our worldview.
It's romantic.
Expansion. Yeah. We have to believe in the ideology of cancer, endless metastasizing across the galaxy. We've got that stuck sideways in our mind. It's not going to happen. Scientists have known this for 50 years now. And yet nobody can admit that. And so everyone's just kind of saying, we're not going to talk about that. Except Elon Musk is coming along, and he's a promoter. He's into marketing. He's basically a glorified salesman.
Right.
And if you're a salesman, there's no such thing as no. A salesman, you just keep on pitching until the client buys it. And if the product turns out to be a dud, that's not your problem. And so Musk is just pitching this product, and I'm sure he doesn't know, he has no concept that it's not going to work. That, if he flies his spacecraft to Mars, he'll be puking his guts out from radiation poisoning.
What about in terms of like space tourism? That's also very popular with many private companies, along with his.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's real simple. It's within the Earth's magnetic field. Low Earth orbit is relatively safe. That's why we have the International Space Station, which is in very low orbit. You have to go out past the Earth's magnetic field before you get into the radiation.
I'm afraid of heights. I'm not going to be going up there anytime soon, by the way, John.
I'm not going to. I have zero interest in doing that.
Yeah, me too.
I get queasy. I get queasy on roller coasters. I am not suited for space travel.
I'm not trying to be a bird either. Yeah.
No, but this is exactly it. People have this fantasy, this Star Trek fantasy stuck sideways in their heads, and if you try to talk to people about it, you realize that that's their real religion. Progress is the God they actually worship. Because trying to tell people, no, we're not going to the stars, we're not even going to Mars, here we are. Get used to it. It's like you're trying to tell a medieval peasant that God and his angels aren't there anymore.
Right.
And so the religion of progress, the belief in progress as a religion, a lot of people who claim to be Christians are actually progress worshippers. A lot of people who claim to be all kinds of religions they're devout believers in progress.
Hey, calm down there, John. You're saying that too loud.
No, I'm fine.
You're saying too much truth here. Calm down.
That'll do it.
But I will be honest, though. I'm not quite sure if you have ever driven a Tesla before, but I have. I have, my friend, and it has changed my perspective on a lot of things. And I'm not even a car guy. I've never really been interested in cars at all. But after driving the Tesla Model S a couple years ago, my God, it made me appreciate what new technology can do. It felt incredible. I felt like I was in a sort of like a turbocharged sort of go-kart of sorts. It was insane. I loved it, by the way. But again, I wouldn't trust the self-driving feature, though. We're seeing lots of accidents on the road currently right now.
Yeah. See my previous comment about sales, about a good salesman who doesn't necessarily pay enough attention.
How the hell did they? My God, John, how did they get the clearance on that? I can't even imagine them being able to pull this off. I mean, do
you remember what I said?
The autopilot system is so screwed up. How?
Do you remember what I said about the U.S. being a third world banana republic?
Yeah.
I'm sure if enough money change, hands, they'll approve anything.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so unsafe.
I say, can you think of another explanation?
You know how, right, money is everything. But John, my God, I'm driving down the freeway at times, and I see these very wealthy men and women driving this Tesla, and they're like asleep at the wheel all the time. I'm just thinking, my God, you're gonna die.
I can say, I suppose it's one way to win the Darwin Award.
Right, exactly. Jesus, I'm not quite sure why these folks want to do that, but again, as a result of drone technology, the world of aviation is rapidly changing, and now people want these sort of aircraft-like vehicles, and lots of companies are already starting to line up to do that. But again, this isn't new. It's an old concept back from the 50s. Remember the Jetsons?
The first flying car was air tested in 1917.
Even earlier than I could have ever imagined. Exactly. But yes, this is an old-ass concept, but now it seems like this is starting to come to fruition. But again...
Exactly. But the thing is...
why would you want to do a flying car, though? I'm just thinking like, holy shit.
It's a bad idea.
Are we that crazy?
Because again, people are stuck in this image out of 1950s comic books.
Right.
Flying cars. Ooh, cool. And now the fact is you can make a flying car. It's been done many times, but there's one little problem. You know how engineering is. When you make something really good for one thing, you make it really bad for something else. If you rig the engine to have maximum torque, it doesn't have really good speed. And if it has maximum speed, it's really poor on torque, and so on. It so happens that the things that make for a good airplane make for a bad car, and the things that make for a good car make for a bad airplane. So your flying car is a lousy airplane and a lousy car, and it costs so much that you could buy a good car and a good airplane and probably a yacht into the picture.
A good point.
And so
I just want a regular car that runs good. I don't even need a flying car.
Yeah, you don't need a flying car, right?
Well, yeah, I say, and with the crapification of everyday life, getting a regular car that runs good is not an easy proposition these days.
What kind of car are you driving, by the way?
I don't.
You don't drive at all?
I don't drive.
You travel by sea?
No, I typically travel by bus. I travel by bus. You know,
good for you.
Good
for you.
No, it's really simple. All those old stories about if you're a writer, you're going to spend a certain number of years living in garrets, eating ramen and things like that. They're true. And so early in my career, I needed to save a lot of money in order to be able to continue to pursue a writing career and this kind of stuff. And one of the things that one of the decisions I made quite early on is that I was not going to spend the money to have a car. And saving that money made it possible for me to pursue my writing career a lot sooner than I otherwise would have.
Nice.
There are some other reasons. I mean, there are good ecological reasons not to have a car, but a lot of it was simply financial. It's a waste of money for me. And so I just never bothered.
And what about your wife?
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing. You guys are just off that sort of off the grid in that sort of way.
Well, and the thing is, one of the tricks here, one of the basic rules of the cultural mainstream, one of the dogmas of the religion of progress, is that you're not supposed to choose technology. You're not supposed to pick and choose. You're supposed to just take whatever technology is marketed at you. Okay? No. We don't play that game, because that whole game is there to empty your bank account and make you dependent, and I don't want either of those. So we pick and choose. The technologies, there are some technologies that I need. I mean, to make a living as a writer, you have to have internet access. Okay,
right.
I can do that.
So you're kind of like, in other words, you're like a middle of the road capitalist in a way, slightly.
Well, in a certain sense, certainly I have no objection to making money.
Who does, really, except for those who don't have it and want to get it from somebody else.
Exactly. The thing is, every Marxist I've ever met was actually desperately wishing they could be a capitalist.
Oh my God!
It's true. It's
true. Damn true.
Exactly. And so, the thing is, but we pick and choose. So we have internet access. Okay. We have some other technology. We don't have a microwave. We don't like microwave food. We like food that actually tastes good. We don't have a car. We don't have television. There are better things to do with life than stare at a glass screen, and so on. It's not a matter of we're going back to the Stone Age. It's a matter of picking and choosing, deciding what you want, what you don't want, and telling the system to get screwed when it tries to insist that no, you must have all the technologies. This nice man from the nice corporation, the nice advertisement, says you should really have this new technology, which will cost you a vast amount of money and do nothing for you. What's not to like? Well, I can start.
That's very admirable, by the way. You not watching television, you have eliminated.
It's not admirable. It's just
right, but you sort of got.
It's boring.
It is boring, but you got rid of all the things that tell you who to fear, who to like, who to worship. You got rid of all of that.
Interject for just a moment.
Jump in there.
There was a point in time in 2008 when I canceled my cable channel. The only thing I kept was a DVD player to play movies at my leisure on a television. And for the record, only recently, as a matter of fact, a year ago, is when a friend of mine purchased Netflix so I can watch movies other than the DVDs that I had. He purchased a Netflix thing for me, and that so only for a year I've had access to I guess you would call it commercial. Well, it's not commercial, but it is essentially it's paid for. So I only watch movies. I don't watch television. I don't watch any kind of news shows.
I know a lot of people who do that. We every so often will watch an old movie. Not very often.
How can you not? You're talking about silent films or just black and white?
I could do probably. We have some colored films, but some colored films, some black and white. But the thing is, it's not that big of a deal. And we both have so many other things going on in our lives. It's a matter of, we'll get around to that.
I'm hearing all the birds in the background, so I got to do this. As always, the birds are excited. But by the way, John, someone in the chat room, by the way, Truth and Doubt, wants me to ask you, or anyone, They want me to ask you about cryptocurrency, by the way, what your thoughts and opinions are on cryptocurrency. Is that the way of the future, or is it not? Is it all bullshit, in other words?
Okay, I am not an investment counselor. Okay, so
no worries.
I want to stress that people should take this as the comment of someone whose background is mostly in history, especially including economic history. But my take is that the cryptocurrencies are basically an investment bubble. People are piling into them because they think they can make money by selling it at a higher price. In the short to middle run, that's always a bad move. And when that bubble pops, a lot of people are going to lose a fantastic amount of money. Now, in the longer run, after we go through the bubble and bust, possibly several times, we'll see what happens. It's possible the cryptocurrencies or at least the underlying technology may turn out to be useful. But right now, watching cryptocurrencies being bid up to insane valuations, it reminds me of nothing so much as the stock market before the 2008 crash or the real estate market ditto. Everyone's just giddy about, I'm going to make so much money on this, and they don't realize that they could also lose at least as much money.
Well, right now, everybody's going to be jamming their money in stocks to the new Green Deal because that's what's going to be shoved down our throats. I expect
to see a stock market bubble of historic proportions. I'm going to make a suggestion to you two and to everyone else listening. Find a copy of John Kenneth Galbraith's book, The Great Crash 1929. It is the funniest, wittiest, most brilliant book of serious economic history you're ever going to read. It's totally readable even if you know nothing about economics, and it's crucial because once you read it, you know what a bubble looks like. And every single speculative bubble in my life, people have brought out the exact same rhetoric, the same battle logic, the same sales pitches that they used in 1929. So if you know those, you look at that and say, oh boy, here we go again.
Tent City, USA.
That's exactly what I was going to get at. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's exactly what's going to happen. We are going to spend trillions on this new Green Deal, and the fact that I said this yesterday, we are not going to be able to really control what the planet does. We can control our the amount of fossil fuel and carbon the fossil fuels that we burn and the carbon footprint that we're going to leave. But we're already, in my opinion, at a point of no return. And I don't even think it's this country that's making all the pollution, because we are incredibly aware of recycling and trying to save our oceans and our air, as well as our land. But there are other countries, India, China, Taiwan, all these other countries that just belch filth into the air, pollute into the oceans, and they just don't recycle and don't care to. So,
and yes, no, absolutely.
It's going to implode.
Keep in mind also a lot of the way that the United States and Europe have reduced their carbon production is by offshoring industry to China and India and other third world countries who are burning the carbon for us.
Point taken. But at the same time,
one way or
how are we going to support ourselves? All right. So look, I agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
Stop paying other people to do it for us. At the same point, we have to figure out how we are going to survive on our own, not worrying about buying oil from the Saudis, not worrying about buying every single electronic thing made by China. It's like we need to worry about ourselves and not police the world.
I'm not going to argue a bit. Not only that, the way that as the U.S. continues to lose its position of strength in the world, as it continues to fritter away its remaining advantages, and as the dollar phases out of being the global reserve currency, we're going to have to do that whether we want to or not, because we're not going to be able to import the things we now import. And that's probably on the far side of the upcoming economic crash. That's one of the things that's going to happen. We'll see how soon it hits. That it will hit, we can be sure of. How it will hit, good question. When? Anyone who tries to time a bubble is going to lose. But yeah, we're facing rough times. That's just and the thing is, there's nothing unusual about that. rough times happen. Hard times are a recurring phenomenon, and it's only in the imagination of people who live inside the bubble that you get this kind of delusion that no, we can't have hard times. Everything should be wonderful for It's just called a sense of entitlement.
Right. Absolutely.
Americans are delusional for the most part.
Yeah,
no doubt.
They believe whatever they want to believe, no matter if it's insane. As long as it feels right, well, who cares about facts? That's how most Americans are, though.
Just do it, as the advertising
Just
says.
do it, yes. Just like Heaven's Gate, just do it. But, for most Americans, as long as they get home on time and they eat their TV dinner, all is well in the world.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Exactly.
And you
Right.
mentioned earlier, Mr. Greer, that I think it was you who mentioned it, how Rome, it took 300 years for Rome to fall, give or take. And it seems to me that America is on the very verge of, or I should say, following the footsteps of Rome, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And that occurs because what's happened with society and our civilization is that we've gotten too comfortable. We've gotten too used to the fact that, oh, I don't need to get a job. I can get welfare. Oh, I don't need to worry about going out and exercise. I got a treadmill. I got a computer. I can order stuff. We've gotten too comfortable.
We've gone lazy, in other words.
And we've gotten lazy, and that is going to be our downfall, and that's what's frightening. It really is.
And it doesn't help with the lockdowns either, with the pandemic, with the infodemic we were plagued with.
Excuse me?
I said the infodemic, it's usually as a result of what, goes on, lots of confusion. No one really knows what's going on. No one actually gives us an actual tangible answer.
And here we're back to that situation where
yes,
nobody knows what the truth is because everybody's telling lies.
Right.
An age of universal deceit.
We come full circle.
It's terrible.
We really have. Once again, I do want to thank you, Mr. Greer, for being a part of the program. You can find his book. Yes, sir. The King in Orange, The Magical and Occult Roots of Political Power. You can find that very, very soon. I have an advanced copy, so you can't really buy it yet. But
it should be out, I think it's the 25th of May is its official release date. It can be advance ordered right now, and the publisher and your favorite bookstore will be happy to sign you up for a copy so that you can be outraged.
You could be,
along with all your neighbors.
You'd be triggered. Once again, John.
Oh yes, I expect to hear blood-curdling shrieks of "Oh, I've been so triggered."
Very nice.
Me.
John, I gotta say, you are a brilliant author. I think the world of you. I think you're highly intelligent. I think you're a very underrated writer. I think a lot of people should read your books. You have plenty of them out there. You're a wealth of knowledge. You are one of the best writers I've had the privilege to read and know a little bit about. I've known about you for several years now, and I'm completely happy that we finally got a chance to do this.
Absolutely.
Well, let's see if we can do it again at some point.
I would love to.
I'm sure I will have another book available that you'll be of interest.
You're the right guest for this show. You're suited quite
Thank you.
properly for this.
I have enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
Yes.
Tell Sarah that I thank her tremendously for also helping putting this together.
I will pass that on.
Very nice. Let her know that we send much love and respect to her.
Okay. I will do that.
Thank you for coming on tonight, Mr. Greer. It was really a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, brother.
I had a great time.
Talk to you soon.
Right.
Mahalo. And there he goes, boys and girls. That was John Michael Greer.
Very fascinating.
What a great guest, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Really. Bravo. Bravo.
That was a fantastic guest. I really liked him. Go and check out his work. I'm telling you, the guy is quite brilliant. He has good blogs out there and plenty of interesting subjects to go through if you are interested. But yes, The King in Orange, a great book. Mike, I might even send you the book.
I'd love to read it. I really would. It sounds fascinating.
I'll send it your way.
He was very, very interesting, very talented in his knowledge, and great guest, really great guest.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And before we shut it down here, Mike, do you have any final words, any more maybe thoughts and opinions that you think that we did not go through at all before we shut it down here?
No, I think
you're good.
He was on the full 3 hours, so we really got a chance.
We got everything in there.
Exactly. I was going to say, sometimes we either go for an hour and a half or 2 hours the most, but very rarely do we go 3 hours, in my opinion, with a guest. And he was on the whole time. And
he loved it. He really enjoyed the conversation with us.
Right. We were able to I was able to get the questions out that I wanted to. So I really think we covered a vast amount of what's the word I'm looking for? We covered a lot.
A lot of ground, but we didn't cover this ground.
That was the word. Thank you.
we didn't cover this right here, though.
Strike and strike and strike and strike and strike and strike until you have victory. For every enemy that is aligned against you, let there be that we would strike the ground, for you will give us victory, God. I hear a sound of abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory.
There we go.
I hear a sound of shouting and singing.
Paula
I
White.
hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. So I hear victory, 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 victory in the corridors of heaven. In the corridors of heaven, victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Hamanda aka ata raka teda baka sanda ata ambo osa kata rite eke banda ata rike didi
Too bad she doesn't know what she's saying.
Angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here. In the name of Jesus. From South America. They're coming here. They're coming here.
They're coming.
They're coming here. They're coming here. From Africa. From South America.
Wow.
Angelic forces. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement. Hika hata anda ata.
She's still going, Mike.
For I hear the sound of victory. I hear the sound of victory. I hear the sound of victory.
I hear the sound of mute.
I hear the sound of cuckoo.
You hear the sound of crazy bitch.
Crazy cuckoo bitch.
Crazy cunt with a...
Oh my gosh.
with maybe an opiate problem. Yeah. A Xanax issue.
Dude, she... when they go on repeating themselves over and over...
Holy shit.
They just ran out of things to say.
Yeah, they're making it up on the spot. Come on.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit.
I mean, come on.
Sounds like a recipe.
It's so silly.
My God.
So silly.
So, Mike, once again, it's been an honor and pleasure to have you here on the program yet again. Always fun to talk to you. And, Mike, go ahead and shut it down.
Absolutely. Michael,
take us home.
For having me. Say again?
I said, take us home.
I'm going to take you home, baby.
Like Phil Collins. Or Phil Collins.
You threw me off. I want to say thank you, Michael. I had a wonderful time. Thank you for having me on as your co-host. Thank you to Mr. Greer, John Michael Greer, and his book. Thank you for all the listeners who listened tonight, podcast listeners as well. If you're interested in any of the musical efforts I have released over the years, you can check out MikeHideous.com, MYKE. Hideous.com. And if you're interested in any of my art or photographs and prints for sale, you can check that out at SpymanPhotoandArt.com. SpymanPhotoandArt.com. Last but not least, if you're interested in checking out anything on my Facebook page or connecting with me personally, you can reach me at facebook.com/HideousMike, HideousMyke. Thank you, everyone, for listening tonight. I had a blast. That's about it.
Get some rest.
I am. I'm like, literally, my eyes are starting to close. Thank you, Michael.
You got
had a blast tonight. I will talk to you soon. I'll tell you, we'll have a little conversation.
Yeah, tell me
tomorrow.
Go ahead. We'll talk tomorrow.
All right, buddy.
All right, brother. Take care. Good night. And there he goes, boys and girls. That was the one and only Mike Hideous. And of course, don't forget, if you are a quote-unquote fan or listener of this program and want to help fund it, that would be great. Please turn your attention to patreon.com/Michael Decon, or go to michaeldecon.com. There is a donate button there if you want to do that sort of thing. If you don't want to join Patreon, if you send me money there through PayPal, I will personally send you all the episodes to your email. Right, so I got you covered. There is a PayPal link there as well if you don't want to be on Patreon. Always good with me. International listeners out there, thank you so much for your support. It was an interesting night yet again. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now I'm going to go grab another beer. Maybe. I'm not quite sure. I haven't decided. The night is still young. Once again, I do want to thank all of you out there, those in the chat, and of course those that listened in on the podcast rendition of this program. You can search Michael Decon or the Michael Decon program on all popular podcast platforms, and yeah, that's where you'll find us. Once again, stay safe, everyone, no matter where you are on this island Earth. I'm Michael Decon, and with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.
Long because of the climate crisis. We only have a few months left. I love that you support the Green Deal, but it's not getting rid of fossil fuel. It's not going to solve the problem fast enough. A Swedish professor saying, we can eat dead people, but that's not fast enough. So I think your next campaign slogan has to be this: we got to start eating babies. We don't have enough time. There's too much CO2. All of you, you're a pollutant. Too much CO2. We have to start now, please. You are so great. I'm so happy that you're really supporting the Green Deal, but it's not enough. Even if we would bomb Russia, we still have too many people, too much pollution. So we have to get rid of the babies. That's a big problem. Just stopping having babies is not enough. We need to eat the babies, and this is very serious. Please give a response.
Thank you. No, thank you. We'll go ahead.
Okay.
No, we'll go ahead. No. Yeah, no. Thank you. So I think, so one of the things that's very important to us is that we need to treat the climate crisis with the urgency that it does present. Luckily, we have more than a few months. We do need to hit net zero in several years. But I think we all need to understand that there are a lot of solutions that we have, and that we can pursue, and that if we act in a positive way, there's space for hope. There's